I'm Charles Soule. You're watching SuperWonder Legacy.
Hey, this is Jason J. Lewis, Superman from Justice League Action, and you're watching SuperWonder Legacy.
You're strong.
I know.
Are you a sight for sore eyes?
It's nice to have someone who likes you for being you.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I'm here with Britt. What's up, Britt?
Hello, hello.
And today we are discussing... So, as you guys know, Britt and I are not the biggest fans of the Injustice comic book series. Is that an accurate assessment, Britt?
Yes.
So, I had happened to have mentioned to Britt that Marvel had their own version of Injustice called Civil War, basically, that came out before Injustice, as a matter of fact. So I wanted to say, okay, so let's look at one of the few times Marvel did a storyline way better than DC. And here's the thing, not everything that Marvel did was good, because here's the thing, Britt, when and I'll bring this up when we get to that point because I have a slide about this. Marvel actually had a sequel to Civil War that was horrible. So I'll talk about that. And then Cameron says, the story that got me into Marvel versus the story that almost made me quit DC. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
What a contrast.
Yeah, I know, right? And the thing about it, Civil War really helped Marvel back in the day, because remember, this is during the time period where Marvel was... So to establish what's going on with Marvel. All right, so I'm just going to move to the next slide. So where Marvel is right now. So around this time period, Marvel was having like some issues with their like universe and with their creatives. And the thing about Civil War is it's one of those storylines where you could say it also really saved the company. And what I mean by that is that when you look at the way Civil War is done, is the thing about it is, so at the time, Bendis had just relaunched the Avengers with the new Avengers. It's like where you have like Spider-Woman, Wolverine, Spider-Man on the Avengers team, like all the popular characters. And then they start getting this word of the Superhuman Registration Act that's proposing through Congress because of these superheroes like being like gods. Now, the thing about it is, at first, there wasn't that big of a pull for this bill until, so there's this superhero team called the New Warriors. They're basically Marvel's Teen Titans. Think about it that way. And what happens in the early parts of Civil War is so the New Warriors are also the stars of a reality show, essentially like the Kardashians, Britt, where it's like a documentary film crew follows them as they do their superheroing. And they come across a safe house being managed by superheroes. And what happens with this is, oh boy, this is when things get a little complicated. So, essentially, the superheroes attack, and they force the battle into the town of Stanford. I think it's Stanford. Yeah, Stanford incident. And what happens is they corner a supervillain named Nitro. Now, Nitro's superpowers is that he can create explosions. Pretty much, he can blow up, but he can't. It doesn't kill him. In other words, so what happens next is he does so, basically nuking the town of of Stanford, like killing men, women, and children and such. And that was he says you're playing in the bag leagues now, and then blows up, taking out the entire town of Stanford. That is what because the idea of the Superhuman Registration Act is the superheroes need to have some type of regulation, or so what the act does in the comics, it gets muddled a little bit, is it requires the superhero, if you have a superpower, you have to register with the federal government, and you have to attend like a SHIELD training course, like on how to properly use your powers. This all sounds well and good until they say if you don't, like, there's no like, I just won't use my powers. No, you have to register or they'll arrest you. And that's where Captain America is like, wait a minute here. So, and the point where they would send the Avengers to arrest other superheroes for the simple crime of, we don't feel comfortable registering with the government. So that's the base. And Iron Man is more like, no, we need regulations because look at what just happened with Stanford. So, Britt, what do you think of the basic premise of Civil War?
I mean, it's pretty okay. It's very politically driven. Um, it, as far as I can tell, it was just the execution that kind of ruined. It didn't land as properly as it should have.
Yes. So moving on. So you have Injustice. Now the thing about Injustice is, so it was created and the story was done. I know this because Jim Boone and Jim Lee and all those guys were doing a panel at Fandom a couple of years ago, and they literally said they just did the storyline the way they did it just to make up a reason why the superheroes could fight. They could have done it where, hey, what if we actually do a storyline where like the superheroes fight the supervillains? But no, they decided, hey, wouldn't it be interesting if we make Superman evil?
Arse.
Yeah, and also it was just so Jim Boone can like wank off to Batman because as Britt and I know, and what we'll tell you here, Jim Boone is a diehard Batman fan. That's why Batman is seen as the hero of Injustice instead of like Superman or any of the other characters that would realistically respond to Superman turning into a global dictator. And it's really ass to quote my lovely co-host. So let's continue on here. So now Civil War is different because it's main continuity. This actually matters in the main continuity. And the effects of this lasted for like close to 5 years with like everything that happened. It's like the Civil War happens. Then the Skrulls invade with Secret Invasion. Then Norman Osborn takes over as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Then it's like up until the Siege of Asgard, which is one of my favorite Marvel storylines ever. I can explain that later. But up until like I think it's like 5 years or so, that is how long you felt the effects of Civil War because the Avengers were still like separated. Now, the thing about it is they try really hard to say both sides or both sides make mistakes, like both sides there's a little bit more of a moral gray area between the two. And that's the thing that Civil War does better than Injustice, because in Injustice, it's clear who the bad guys are.
Right.
So then Civil War is about, and they both are about the same relative thing with freedom versus security. Now, Civil War 2 is about, could you be arrested for a crime you might commit in the future? I'll explain more in detail when we get to that slide, but this is where it's majorly in the same way that Injustice was a character assassination on Wonder Woman, Britt. Civil War 2, also written by Bendis, mind you, is a massive character assassination on Carol Danvers.
Oh, well, so Marvel and DC does have things in common where they destroy their main female characters.
Yep, exactly. So there's a similar structure. So you have hero versus hero. Civil War is less contrived, trust me, but there is a catalyst event. There's a collapse of trust. Excuse me. And there's like, they get into varying degrees of like different political issues. Like with Injustice, they did have a great part where Barry Allen is playing chess with Superman. And he's basically saying, look, so Superman says we have to do this. It'll save lives. And Superman goes, okay, then like lock up every smoker, lock up everyone that drunk drives, lock up everyone that leaves their dog out without a chain. Inevitably, you're just going to lock out people for leaving their homes then. And that was about the one of the only good parts of those Injustice comic books. And that was a debate that would later be in the cultural zeitgeist with like COVID and all that stuff. And it's the same thing with like Civil War. It's like, should we have to register our powers with the government, our powers and secret identities, Britt? Because some of these people still had secret identities. And it was also to the point where Iron Man, Hank Pym, and Mr. Fantastic made a secret prison in an alternate dimension where they would just throw dissidents into. They basically built a gulag.
Wow.
So it's like, when you're thinking about it, yes, they wanted more ambiguity, but it was more clear on who's the dick in this storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So then the key difference is, so with continuity, there's a very different, like set of restrictions you have. And the thing is, I was having a debate with someone on my show last night about Injustice, and she loves Injustice, but she said, the thing is, it's an Elseworld story, so I can afford that. And for some reason I didn't say this, but the problem with this, Britt, and you can talk more on this as well, is like the problem with a storyline that's labeled Elseworlds. Yes, it's Elseworlds, but then the idiot fan base applies that to the general line.
Exactly. That is the main problem with Injustice, is that because it's so, the video game and everything, it created this phenomenon of fans not reading the regular source material, and then we'll get into this later, but you do have the 2013 effect of the DCEU. Now, I know you will disagree, but there is some connections there that give you that certain feel that this is how the characters are supposed to be. And I will explain that later.
Okay, yeah, no, that's totally fine. Although I do feel like some like criticism of the DCEU is a little forced, but I'll get to there. So, and it's like with the again to your point, what you put here, there was long-term canon consequences to Civil War. Like for the longest time, Cap and Iron Man didn't really hate each other, but there was a sense that like everything was like broken between the two, and you had this in the movie as well. And it's like with this, and the thing is like Marvel had to do double duty in order to like repair the reputations of both Cap and Iron Man. But it seems like whenever they do the Civil War storylines, these heroes fighting heroes, it always leads to you have to fundamentally change the characters are as people in order for it to make sense. That's the funny part about this. Is like that's how how I know that like maybe they should stop doing the whole superheroes. Let's have the superheroes fight, because if you have to like fundamentally destroy who the characters are, maybe your storyline kind of sucks.
Right.
Am I right? It's like, what are you guys doing at this point?
Well, they want the cash grab, they want the fan attention. You know, all controversy is, in a very twisted way, good controversy.
Yeah, exactly. So then you get to the character trajectory. So Iron Man was kind of the villain of Injustice, but he's always kind of been like that. I would say morally ambiguous, because he's still a hero. He's not like an anti-hero or something like that. And he's one of those characters that is the definition of like trying to get redemption for like, because he was a weapons manufacturer. He didn't know his weapons were being used improperly and stuff. But it's like with Superman, here's the thing. That's what it's like the problem with Injustice Superman is not only is it super contrived that he turns evil, they go like so extreme with it, and it's so rapid. It's like at the end of it's like practically within 2 issues, he's all of a sudden evil, and I'm like, what?
Well, of course, because they have to have, the I would say the one that doesn't supposed to be compromised. You know, his morals, his values. It is just something that they want to twist and bend, and especially Diana too, because you can tell that her, you know, her role was very much if if you had her acting as she should have, you know, then you wouldn't have an injustice story. You wouldn't have a
Hmm.
video game. But as you said earlier, it is to make Batman, you know, dominant and also make it seem like having contingency plans and everything like that, he is right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and it's the other thing. It's like if you notice, all of the superheroes, all the people with powers are the ones that sided with Superman, and I'm like, oh come
Because,
on, dude.
well, first of all, it does go into xenophobia.
Yep.
And, you know, it's basically all aliens, all superpowered beings are evil, while the humans, which is, you know, human superiority, is or will be the good guys. I mean, even Harley, because she is human, is turned like she has some type of redemption at some point, you know.
Yeah,
So
Batman brings Harley into the Bat family after, in this universe, mind you, what she did to Jason Todd is canon.
yeah, so they when you analyze it, you know, you're not supposed to analyze this because it is supposed to be a video game. But at the same time, because the video game and the comics had so much influence on these characters, you can't help but to analyze it as deeply as we do and basically see how it has negatively impacted so many characters. And especially Superman and Wonder Woman because these two, you know, represent the best of the best. They
Yeah,
are supposed
exactly.
to be these positive influences. But when you have Wonder Woman as they think, oh, she's from an island of warrior women. So they just think of her as this generic warrior woman that being from an island full of women, she's going to hate men. You know, and you have these different depictions in other media of Amazons. And when you think of Amazons, you think of women fighting, you think of them as man hating, you know, these brutes or whatever. So that is how Diana is depicted. And then you see that in other media. It's not as bad in the other media, but again, injustice having so much influence over the the other stuff. And
Exactly.
again, within 2013 through 2016, as I said, DCEU didn't have her as a brute, but again, yes, I know it was canceled, but the idea still that was presented from the beginning was, you know, a combination um, of all of that.
My counterpoint to that, Britt, is how many ideas have we proposed for the Shelterverse where we're like, yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah, but we didn't actually say it or do it. The thing is
They
the
didn't do
fact
it
that
either.
they didn't, but it was a compromise to where you see a slither of it. That's the thing.
The, okay. Cameron says Super Wonder leads to injustice, and Superman needs Lois is one of the biggest reasons this house will needs to be burned. Well, what does the Wonder Woman is the real reason why it needs to be burned, brother? I'm just gonna tell you that right there. Also, I think you made me realize this, Jared. But hashtag notice how all the good guys are the non. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing about that. Oh, she also helped murder a baby and pregnant woman that somehow people forgot. Oh yeah, she helped kill Lois and lead to all this. So I'm like, guys, maybe Harley is not the superhero you think she is. So then you have the role of ideology. In Civil War, it's straight up freedom versus security. And yeah, but that's the thing about Civil War. Both sides, they make it so it doesn't come. This is what people miss when they say comic books have always been political. To a certain degree, that's true. But the difference is back then, and I say back then, but Civil War and earlier than that, here's the thing about this. in Civil War, and even the Hard Traveling Heroes book with Oliver and Hal, they never pointed to one side and said, that's the right side. If you disagree, you're a horrible person. Nowadays, Britt, it's more of, if you disagree with the writer, or you're like, I think you kind of oversimplified this, you're an istophobe.
Well, yes.
Where when you present issues with more nuance, notice how people still remember Civil War.
Well, that also goes for Civil War. As I said, it's a good premise in a way, but the execution a little shaky. Injustice, however, is you're gonna get botched, characters. I mean, it's kind of like bad plastic surgery,
Yeah.
and then you have these characters who you don't recognize. Um, and it shows how it validates a lot of people's misconceptions of, as I said, Superman and Wonder Woman, to where it's like, oh, they need to justify Lois or Steve being a love interest. That these two superpowered beings have to basically be treated like wild animals, or rabid dogs on leashes, to be tamed in order to not become evil. And that again goes into xenophobia and why this video game is so misguided.
Oh, misguided, Britt. And see, what you guys have to say about Britt, and I think at this point everyone knows this. When Britt says misguided, there's a lot of choice words that she would rather be using, right?
Right.
Yeah. So then we get to, it's like Injustice. Injustice starts off as good because, like, okay, this is an interesting story of, like,
Absolutely not.
what I mean by that is Superman, because Superman's actions lead to the death of Metropolis as well. What I mean, hear me out on this, Britt. That premise, okay, Superman dealing with a mass casualty incident that he indirectly caused. What comes after that immediately is the bad part. Like, he wouldn't turn bad. Batman would not, like, say, screw you, dude. But what I mean is, it's the setup is, like, not altogether, like, crappy. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, Kingdom Come did it better, so.
Okay. Oh, Kingdom Come definitely did it better, but it's kind of like my point. So with this, it's like, the other problem, and the reason why Civil War was also better, and why you had a max of powers and non-powers on either sides. Marvel superheroes are more grounded, like, dudes, whereas Civil War, whereas Injustice is like, okay, gods versus humans. And I get the other thing. Oh, it's a very aspirational thing. Man fights gods. No, how about we just have? Because here's the problem with stories like Injustice. It leads to people not trusting. Because it's like, Britt, I assume you know what Dispatch is, right? The game.
I've seen it on Twitter.
One of the two love interests is Blonde Blazer. She's basically the Wonder Woman of that, like, universe, and that she is, like, the like, most famous female superhero. She's like your boss slash she can be a love interest. The thing is, the fan base, particularly the other, because there were two love interests, her and Invisigal, and the Invisigal fan base was like, oh, she's definitely going to be like some, like, evil person because, look, she's blue-eyed, blonde hair. No one can be that good. That's what Injustice did, is that it makes people think that no one can be, like, a universally good person.
Which is a lie.
Which is a very lie. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's people are like, oh, if I had Superman's powers, I would be like Injustice Superman. Well, I'm glad you don't have you don't have Superman's powers then, bro.
So y'all are just bad people. And, that really shows, I guess, the projection and the contradiction, because it is humans who are saying this. If they had the power, they would be evil. But the people who have the powers are the ones who are inherently good.
Yeah, exactly. So plus here's the thing again, DC is intended to be in a world where, and particularly Superman. I mean, Britt, that as a reason why we like Superman with Wonder Woman, because he is supposed to be that drastic contradiction to the way the Amazons historically thought of men. He has literally the powers of a god. He doesn't see himself as a god, and he intends to like protect people, and he is the most altruistic person around. When you muddy that, you lose who Superman is, and he just becomes a generic tyrant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Injustice did. So then you get to the tone with the genre. With Injustice, yes, it's dark and stuff. See, here's the thing. With Injustice, it got too much to the point where, for shock value, they were like, oh, look at this character. Oh, they're killed. Look at Superman punching a hole through the Joker's chest. Look at Hal Jordan tearing off Guy Gardner's arm. Oh my gosh, isn't that extreme? And yeah, it's heavy shock value. It's more like Injustice is more like The Boys, whereas Civil War is, yes, more political, but so granted, Civil War had some moments that were like purely for shock value. I'm not gonna. It's written by Mark Millar. The man invented shock value. However, the thing that like Civil War does better is it does it more. Barring a few exceptions, more tasteful.
Well, the bar is in hell for Injustice, so I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like now. Here's the thing. Here's some of the things that like. Are you ready to see what Iron Man's team did?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So obviously you know who Thor is, right?
Obviously.
So you may be wondering, Jared, where was Thor during Civil War? Well, he was dead. So you know what Tony Stark did?
What did he do?
He cloned Thor, created a robot named Ragnarok. So when he deployed the robot, it straight up went haywire and killed Giant Man. Giant Man was a different character named Bill Foster, but killed him. And so what happened was, and this was some of the backlash that at least the art got. So they couldn't, so he couldn't shrink down because he was like killed as a giant guy. So they had to bury him. So they put him in a grave. The problem is, okay, so Bill Foster's a black man. I'm saying that because it's very important for right now. They bury him in chains.
Now, how in the hell did that get past editorial?
I'm like, wait a minute. No one thought that would not be the best look. But yeah, and I mentioned the negative zone prison called Prison 42, and that's kind of like that was the big like thing that like really pissed off a bunch of superheroes, because you now had superheroes being sent to that prison in the negative zone, where if you're in the negative zone for too long, Britt, you go literally insane.
Well, that is interesting.
Yeah, and Tony Stark kept his friends in there to the point where when he's putting Daredevil in there, this is so great. Daredevil gives him a piece of silver, and he goes, okay, well, why are you giving me a piece of silver? He goes, oh, yeah, I still owe you 29 more, you Judas. Yeah, it's like Iron Man it took a bit of a PR hit. The other thing that's kind of funny, so the story starts. So there's this character named Maria Hill. She took over as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. after Nick Fury went on the run. And so the thing about Hill, so what happens is that the Superhuman Registration Act is passed, but it goes into effect at midnight. So before midnight, Captain America is on the helicarrier trying to argue about like, okay, so why are you doing this whole registration thing? So she basically like arrests him for violating the SRA, even though it's not in effect yet. She tries to, but then he escapes. But I'm like, you just turned Captain America into a fugitive when you didn't need to turn him into a fugitive. He hasn't committed a crime yet. So
It was just,
yeah, go ahead.
I guess it was just conflict for conflict.
Yeah, because they needed the conflict. And the thing is, it wasn't necessarily like it got contrived, but what really happened with it, it's like, actually, no, it did get contrived. Then, you know what Iron Man did next? So he needed to augment his force. So he literally put mind control chips in supervillains like Venom, Lady Deathstrike, like all the Thunderbolt characters, and like turned them into his own personal slave army.
So we're going for Amanda Waller's Suicide
Pretty
Squad.
much, he turned into Marvel's Amanda Waller for a time. That's kind of what he turned into. So, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, Cap did some kind of stupid stuff, but I'm like, Iron Man is pretty much a dick. It was to the point, Britt, this is pre-movie Iron Man, where the fan base hated Iron Man until the movie came out.
I mean, with all that, I would too.
Yeah, exactly. And then with Injustice, the thing about Injustice is like Civil War is flawed, but there's still some good stuff, and the flaws don't outweigh the plot. Again, with Civil War, it's not like with Injustice, where I always call it a sweater made by a blind person, meaning if you unravel one thread, the whole thing comes apart. Whereas with Civil War, granted, you have to like change the way certain characters act, but I'm like, it's less crazy than Injustice. I feel like it's not perfect, but you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, it's from what you've said again. The story has its moments. It's a little contrived. It does have character assassinations and everything like that. However, you can. It's more politically driven, and a lot of the. I would say that it had a purpose, in a sense, um, and a big risk. With Injustice, it was just for a video game. It's pretty much on the level of hell that Trinity is with Tom King. Just
come
because.
on, Trinity is deeper in hell. Come on.
No, they don't. Well, they in the trenches of hell, both of them.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, you have, again, the most positive characters turned upside down just for them to fight. And honestly, the for the graphics of the game, it was not worth it because it's ugly as hell in the first place. So it's all ugly all around. Um, but yeah, you don't have a true story. And as you said, you wanted Diana to be Cersei or Maxima in disguise.
That is the best way if
Because
you ever wanted to retcon it and repair all the damage. That's the easiest way to do it.
I mean, because it just does not fit Diana at all as a character. And for Tom Taylor to write the comic, tie-in, and for him to say, well, he's not writing Diana, but at the same time, when you look back on other things that he's written, like Deceased and everything, the way he writes Diana is the same way. She's in the background unless you want that warrior woman. She's not as brutal, but she has nothing to do but be a love interest or something, or be that warrior woman.
Yeah, it's like even and speaking of Deceased, when she is the one that tears Cyborg's head off when she's infected,
and she also becomes the big bad as the zombified, Wonder Woman. She is the queen of the zombies or something for like a short period of time.
For very short, because in the next graphic novel that takes place in the next one, the sequence, she gets immediately killed.
Yeah, so even just for that, it shows that Tom Taylor is lying about how he feels about Diana. They all see her as this generic warrior woman. Even in Dark Knight of Steel, she does nothing but follow around Kara, and she's angry. You know, of course, with Hippolyta dying in front of her, but she just goes,
She goes to kill Alfred Martian.
yeah, and it's kind of like, okay, this is not Diana. She would be heartbroken, of course, but she would just not just go that berserk, you know?
Well, the thing is that the thing about Tom Taylor is that he's traditionally a writer that's heavily associated with Marvel. I've noticed that when you have Marvel-like writers, they can't write like female, like Wonder Woman well. It's like, and I use Tom King in that example because he has said himself, he has more Marvel sensibilities. And I'm like, then go write for them.
Right.
But anyway, so then you have the use of violence. Again, with Civil War, it's more of like, yes, there are some times before people in the comments go, oh my gosh, you're just blasting it and stuff. With Civil War, it's less like it seems just for shock value. Like all of this serves like a purpose of the story. Now, you may be wondering, Jared, what role did like Thor killing Bill Foster play? That's when like some of the heroes on other sides switch, because what happens is with the Fantastic Four, Ben Grimm like completely f's off. He goes, I want no part of this. Johnny is put in the hospital because a crowd attacks him because of what happens in Stanford. They blame all the superheroes. And with Sue, she starts off at first supporting Reed, but Reed is like also very much on the registration side because he pulls like some science BS where like he crunches the numbers and says the registration is the better like option. So, and he's also behind like cloning Thor and stuff. So when she sees this, she actually helps the registration humans escape because she goes, because of you, Tony Stark, a friend of mine just died. So this has gone far enough. And then she takes Johnny and they F off. She straight up leaves Reed. They're still married. She still loves him. But she's like, I cannot be a part of this anymore.
Well, good for Sue.
And Carol Danvers, as a matter of fact, because I was reading. So I always say, if you want to read a solid Carol Danvers series, read the run by Brian Reed that was around this time period. So a good portion of the arcs take place during Civil War. At first, she was the leader of the Mighty Avengers, which was Iron Man's team that basically hunted down anti-registration heroes. But the thing is, one of the things she had to do was hunt down a close friend of hers who was just trying to get back to see her kid, and S.H.I.E.L.D. was like going to lock her up. So she goes, what? She basically has the "what have I done" moment. She helps him escape, and then she straight up goes on the run. She says, "Screw you, Tony. What do you?" Again, I signed up because I thought we were going to be helping people, and we're just locking up kids now.
What a mess.
Yeah, but the point is like, this is when I was reading this, and I'm like, oh, thank God, because like the female heroes in Civil War, the main female, and now you may be wondering, where were the X-Men and all this? X-Men were neutral. They basically told Tony, hey, don't screw with us. We won't side with Cap if you don't force us to register. We'll just stay in our little area. We're not going to screw with anything. And Tony Stark is like, okay, fine. Considering the fact that most of the X-Men have godlike powers, there's no way his team of Avengers could face them. So can you imagine like Storm going up against like Spider-Man?
That would have been interesting. I mean,
well, also, Britt,
to see electrocuted Spider would be interesting.
Well, here's the other thing, Britt. You know what Emma Frost says? Tony meets her, and she goes, hey, Tony tries to talk her into convincing the X-Men to register. And Tony goes, you know, it would really save more lives. We're trying to minimize violence and lose a catastrophe. And then Emma goes, okay, where were you when the Scarlet Witch snapped half my people away? Where were you when, like, a Sentinel showed up on Genosha and wiped out thousands of mutants? As far as I'm concerned, you seem to be all about caring about about saving lives, but you don't give a shit about my people. So you know what? No, just stay on your side. We won't screw with you, but don't come to me about this is all about saving lives.
Well, she was right.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that I love when the writers say you guys do nothing against anti-mutant like violence, and I'm like, what are you guys doing here? So I absolutely adore that. Yeah, and the X-Men had the right idea. They're like, we want no part in this. Just don't drag us into it. Whereas with Injustice, it's like, thing about it, the other problem with Injustice, beyond the fact that it's absolutely awful, is, and this gets into the contrived thing, because they tried to play off of the whole Superman's the moral center of the Justice League. So, of course, if he turned evil, they would all eventually turn evil. Here's the problem with that, Britt. All right, so he literally makes all the other characters evil. Like Wonder Woman, the first time. Well, she had reason. Hal Jordan, who like takes Sinestro's word for it that Guy Gardner killed John Stewart when it was Sinestro. But I'm like, you're listening to Sinestro, who is a Yellow Lantern at this point, Britt, and is Hal Jordan's enemy. I'm like, what? That's why I love that. Honestly, when people hated the Injustice animated movie, that's what I'm like, no, that's the better version of it, because it takes away all the contrived BS. Wonder Woman even turns against Superman. She's like, okay, this has gone on way too far, bro.
Bar in hell, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what the? It's like the Flash. Oh, they killed the Flash in the animated movie. Yeah, but he turns into a like collaborator, but with a like dictator. But it's like, yeah, Superman straight up murders a like building full of teenagers because they happen to idolize the Joker, and I'm like, at this point, it's like it's gone on way too long. He murders Martian Manhunter. It's like he literally kills everyone. Do you know what Superman also does, Britt? You know what Tom Taylor has Superman do?
What did he do?
He hires Victor Zsasz to break into Wayne Manor and murder Alfred.
Wow.
Just to get at Bruce.
I mean, that's the thing is, that just shows that Clark is deep down evil. And not only that, but even in the animated movie, and I think in the Injustice comics, it was like, it's all for Lois. This is for Lois.
Yep.
You even have, what was that? Tom Petty's Earth 2 for New 52, Brutal, whatever his name was, for him to be basically Injustice 2.0, it shows that, again, Clark has this evilness deep down, and he needs to be tamed by Lois. That is essentially the whole thing. It doesn't matter that Metropolis is nuked. That doesn't matter. Clark, honestly, if Lois were to have survived, he would not care. He would be sad a little bit or whatever, but honestly, he would not care as long as he has Lois. And that's the point of Injustice and just all of this rooted, oh, Superman needs Lois,
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, these are stories that make me really hate that woman, because it's like, wait a minute here. So him oversimplifying Injustice to just Lois dies, because you notice on Twitter, people ignore the fact that Metropolis is also nuked. So beyond that, but then you have people saying that like, just simplifying it to Lois dying. I'm like, wait a minute. He was raised by humans.
That does not matter. They see Clark as Omni-Man.
Exactly. So then we get to editorial and writing intent, because Injustice, it's just to tie into the video game. And I'm like, oh my God. It's just, they needed it to like justify the game. But I'm like, again, you could have just had it where it's the heroes versus the villains. You didn't have to do, what if Superman turned evil? And like the other Justice Leaguers turn evil. Even Cyborg turns evil. And I'm like, it's like it's the more like it's the dumbest thing in the world, and it's just to prop up Batman. It's just to show, look, what would probably happen, Batman could take out everyone. And I'm like, oh, that's the other thing. Injustice not only harmed the way people look at Wonder Woman, it also backed up the whole Bat God bullshit.
Exactly. If you would have taken inspiration from the original story, which was Kingdom Come, it is a Superman story. He isn't um he's morally gray, sure. He um he has lost his faith in humanity, but the thing is humanity lost their faith in him. So
Oh, and
that
Britt, in that storyline, who comes and brings him back to humanity?
right, I was getting to that.
Okay.
Diana. So and with that's why, what I said earlier, that if Diana was to be who she was in Kingdom Come or just her character in general, then, you know, you wouldn't have an injustice. You would have Kingdom Come, first of all, but it wouldn't be a video game unless you have them fight over the fact of honestly creating the anti-hero new generation versus the old generation. That would have been the better story instead of trying to pit it, pit against um, the you know the well-known heroes.
Exactly. And it's like, but whereas with Civil War, it's the thing about Civil War is, and you bring up a great thing about the post 9/11, because 100% at the time with Civil War, you had like innocent Muslims being like or roped up by the federal government just because they were Muslims, and people thought, oh, they're terrorists and stuff. And I'm like, you had a lot of the same Civil War stuff, and this is what Marvel does well when they actually do it properly. Because you can make political statements like this in the book, but do it general enough that it's timeless. Because you don't link it to like a particular issue, like in name it. That just makes it so your book will only be relevant to that time period. Whereas Civil War, you still have this today. You've had it during COVID. It's like anytime you have the how much freedom are you willing to sacrifice for security, that's when you have a storyline like this. And then it like really like it shook up the status quo, but it did so in a major way that was something new, because at the time the tropes of there's a civil war of superheroes that lasts for so long, that didn't happen before. So then by the way, so during the Secret Wars event, Marvel released a bunch of books called Battle World, I think. And actually it was War Zones. And they released a basic alternate ending to Civil War. Like, what if the Civil War kept going? You know who wrote it?
Bendis?
Nope, Charles Soule.
Oh, really?
And it is spectacular. Basically, in this, the war keeps going, but what happens is it turns out the entire Civil War was the actions of the Skrulls to divide the superheroes so they could invade. And I'm like, that is so much better. Like, oh my God, that would have been so great if they actually did that.
Okay.
And it's like at the end, the superheroes unite once more to face a common threat. And I'm like, leave it to Charles Soule to take the Civil War's concept and do it so much better.
Of course.
Yeah, I should have brought that book to get signed. Damn it. But the point is, it's like, so they did that. And Barry Britt, I think you would really like that book. But so the thing about Civil War, it's like you also had it where like it had some effects on the characters that are more felt. See, here's the thing. Injustice was treated by the fan base as if it is canon with like their conceptions of Superman and Wonder Woman, but Civil War is canon, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where like that like divide between them is. And then Cameron says, honestly, if Injustice just did the Public Enemy storyline, it would have worked because that's essentially what it is. Yeah, except it's Superman and Batman fighting a lot. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with Public Enemies, Cameron. Actually, is it a problem? Not really, because with the Public Enemies, they took a small set of superheroes, most of whom it's realistic that they would side with the government, and then put them against Batman and Superman. That you could do. You can even have it where like Wonder Woman provides sanctuary in the embassy because legally they can do that. So it's like you could have done that a lot better. But no, they know that Batman and Superman fighting. Like, you know what's kind of funny? Injustice is also a bastardization of Dark Knight Returns.
Well, yes, of course.
Like, you know, that's where when Taylor was and the previous writer were writing this, they were like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have our own Dark Knight Returns, and this is gonna be so great. Yeah, it sucks. So, fan and critical reception. You get to the character assassination of Injustice. Yeah, as Britt and I say again, people apply the rules of Injustice to the overall canon. That's the major legacy of the book, is that now you have a bunch of xenophobic Superman fans.
I mean, you already have xenophobic Superman fans. It's just increased.
Yeah, exactly. But whereas in Injustice, you have it's like it really made Marvel like super relevant at the time, because Marvel was going through a sort of a reinvention this time, and they really helped it. And then for the negative, there was some character assassination with like Cap and stuff. And then because to be fair, what happened with Cap is, so Tony leads the like lures them into an ambush, but basically goes, Cap, I don't want to fight you. I'll tell you what, shake my hand. Let's just talk this through. Let me tell you my plans for this, how I plan on amending the Accords and stuff, and then we can see if we can come to a common understanding. And then Iron Man and then Cap just punches Iron Man in the face, and I'm like, bro, he was giving you an out. But beyond that, it shows that's more of like the character assassination of the characters, and well, yeah, and it's also, to your point, it made Iron Man seem like he's the main bad guy. So that's kind of true there. Which is funny because in Civil War II, it's flipped. He's the good guy. But Carol Danvers is the bad guy in Civil War II. I'll explain that later. And then I'll tell you, I'm going to, when we get to the slide on Civil War II, I'm going to explain to you the entire story of Civil War II. And then you're going to tell me your thoughts on it. All right. But it's like when you get to like, the thing about it, Britt, is like, this was brought to my attention when we did the episode on Mortal Kombat. And it's like, look, the thing about it, I don't think the Mortal Kombat people have any concept of what a hero actually is. Because when you look at Mortal Kombat, it's not heroic. And then it's like, when you see how they treated their female characters, that's when you really start to see, that's when I really lost all respect for the Mortal Kombat like franchise. Particularly Sindel.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
So I'm like,
terrible.
Thank you for opening my eyes, Britt. I really appreciate that.
No problem.
But and that's what I love about doing podcasts with Britt. I always learn new stuff as we go. So then you get to the character impact. So for Superman, he needs Lois or he turns into Homelander. And I'm like, what about the Kents? Don't worry about them. They're not important. But I'm like, it's again, Charles, this is going to be my 8 millionth time referencing Power Couple, Britt. Charles had Batman say, there's a reason why I've always felt felt comfortable working with you. It's because you see yourself as human. You see yourself as human. What I mean by that is you were raised on this planet. As far as you're concerned, you're just a guy that has incredible powers, and you will always consider mankind your home team. That now, Britt, let me ask you this. I know you know the answer to this. What makes that like saying, Clark, you see yourself as human? different than the way most Superman writers consider it. Like, well, why is it okay when Charles does it?
Well, that's because he still appreciates his Kryptonian heritage, and he
Mhm.
has the balance between the two.
Thank you. Exactly. It's because when he means it, he just means like you're always going to protect Earth. You're never going to do anything that would harm Earth. That's really what it is, and that's why that works so well, and why it doesn't make sense that he loses Lois and granted Metropolis gets nuked. But the other thing about this, Britt, making Batman the good guy doesn't work. You know why?
Because he is a paranoid freak.
Not only that, Batman is the main villain of Injustice. Do you know why?
Why?
Because here's the thing. After Superman had just killed the Joker, he hasn't done anything else. I want to be very clear about this. The only sin this man has done is killed the Joker. He goes to Batman to kind of decompress. And basically, he goes to his friend for comfort. And you know what Batman does? The same thing he did to Wonder Woman after she effing killed Maxwell Lord.
Well, yeah, I mean, because they still see Joker and, Max Lord as human, and
And
Clark
that's
and
the thing.
Diana are,
Yeah, go ahead.
when they use their powers, even for the greater good, in that sense, they have no other option, or something goes wrong and out of their control, or in case of those scenarios of the Joker and Lord, it's still that they are looked upon as the bad guys, that they can't kill, even when it's necessary. Um, it's just it's a double standard, and again, a lot of projections within this human superiority type thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, realistically, you know what Bruce should do? He should come to Clark and say, hey, listen, man, I know you just went through a traumatic experience. I've been there. Trust me, you will get through this, and I will help you through this. We need to tread carefully because, again, I want to make sure you don't take this too far, but I will help you through this. You will get through this. I'm here for you, my friend. If Bruce had just done that, Clark would not have, because the major rift is when he goes, I came to you asking for help and you just told me to get lost.
Well, yeah. I
So I'm
mean,
like,
that's
yeah,
a that's mischaracterizing Bruce. But again, even with all the influences that Injustice takes, there was a scene or so where Bruce just cares about Gotham and Kingdom Come. Like that was he didn't care about anything else. It was just safety or whatever of Kingdom Come. Now that we get because that is main verse Bruce anyway, but he will still, comfort his friend in some sort of capacity. He just wouldn't be shut off and cold-hearted like that. But again, if you have these characters in characters, you wouldn't have injustice.
yeah, if they act, that's why I say that this is the most contrived storyline DC ever did, because the amount of plot of things that have to be convenienced for this storyline to make sense, even though it doesn't make sense, is astounding.
Right. Even, actually the images that you have, here first, you were right that Tom Taylor did take inspiration from the DKR, because with this, Clark has a dream, and it's Lois becoming president, Diana becomes a secretary, or secretary
And she marries
of Lois,
Batman, right?
and she marries Batman. Um, because of course, Taylor's whole thing was he only knows Diana from DCAU, of course, and he said that they've had like connections in Elseworlds, which is not true. So,
Very not true.
right. So, within this scenario, Clark is wearing the Kingdom Come S as older, and the little girl, her name is Laura. So yeah, it is again nitpicking cherry picking from older, more well-known stories and twisting them. Even if Kingdom Come and BKR has its own flaws, which we know, and it does teeter a certain line, it's still not as bad as Injustice. And even with Dream, it really just showed how unoriginal Injustice is, and Tom Taylor should have known better. Even if he didn't, yeah, sure, it is an Elseworlds, but at the same time, seeing how it has influenced these characters in such a negative way, I just would, as a writer, I would refuse it or I would try to make it better. The only time it really became a little bit better for Diana was it was another writer that came in to take over from Taylor.
Oh yeah, it
And
was
he
Brian Bucaleto.
yeah,
He wrote the best parts of Injustice because year 4 of Injustice is when the Greek gods show up.
right, and you have Diana have a little bit more grasp on her character. But yeah, Taylor, he's very much a Lois fan, Chloe's fan. So her character assassination is fueled by that. And just making it about Lois. Even year one, you see um with the JSA, Diana is old as dirt, but for her to be old as dirt and act like this it doesn't make sense. You also have the Injustice Annual that's telling Diana's origin, and of course they link it to DCEU in a twisted way. Yeah, so it's as I said, the impact and the influence, the inspiration for Injustice is all twisted, and it should be buried.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm about the one person on the, and the only people that want to see more Injustice are just the people that want another DC fighting game. They don't care about the damage it does to the character. Anyway, speaking of damage done to the character, Wonder Woman. So the thing about this version, and I think Britt, I gotta be honest, I think you undersold what the damage that this did to Wonder Woman. I'm only kidding, of course. But the thing about this is, like, even with Injustice 2, when the comics came out for that, because the game really really damaged Wonder Woman in Injustice 2, but the comics were a little better. But in the comics, so she shows up, and one of the plot points of Injustice is Clark put the Teen Titans in the Phantom Zone. So she finds out about this when she sees Cassie, and Cassie's like, "You sided with Superman. He puts in the Phantom Zone," and then she goes, "He never told me of this." So you think, oh, is she gonna actually turn against Superman? Nope.
I mean, I don't know how she wouldn't have known, when she's
Because
like,
he did it behind her back.
I mean, but she was like his shadow, so
I think it was a part where they broke into the Fortress of Solitude, and she was doing something else.
whatever, it's all contrived.
It's stupid for as hell, for sure. I'm not trying to defend it, but I'm just like, come on, guys. But anyway, it's like when you deal with like this, it's like she. Again, in many ways, watch Taylor's in the Justice 3 comics. If they come out, he's going to try and say that Diana was actually the daughter of Ares. Watch, he'll do that. He'll think, "Oh, I'm so cool. Look, I'm mirroring Greek mythology." And I'm like, you're just like the two other guys that tried to give Diana a godfather, and it's just so stupid. And it's like, with this, let me put it this way: realistic Diana, she would be on. I hate to say this, Britt. She would be on Batman's team in this story.
Actually, no, she would be on her own team.
Okay, explain.
Because Diana would see both sides. She would see that Bruce did not take it seriously of um basically getting a handle on Joker. This says it what it has done was knowing Joker has had this plan, or if it was written correctly there would have been a buildup. There would have been some type of hint of something happening, you know. So she would feel that, not blaming Bruce, but it's kind of like that is your villain. You are not having him secure. You know how dangerous he is, and this caused a lot of casualties. She would not agree with Batman at all. And
Okay,
then
I
the
see
way
that.
Batman, just his total attitude towards everything of is, you know, protecting Gotham, everything like that. No, she would not be on Bruce's side. And then she would kick Clark's ass for even thinking to retaliate in that way, and turning evil. So no,
All
she
right.
would be on her own side.
All right, so let me amend my statement then. I could see her making them sit down and saying, "Okay, you guys are not leaving until you actually talk this out." And she goes, and then essentially, she basically tells them, "Do you know why I've stood by you guys throughout all the stuff that's happened with the Justice League? It's because, again, I know that deep down you guys were the ones who, because I know that you guys deep down are good men, and this is not you. Cal, you've gone through a very traumatic experience, and I sympathize with you 100%. But going down the road of injustice, you do not become another Zeus. And Bruce, your friend is suffering, and yet you ostracize him. I
Right.
would I would think that Clark would have earned a little more grace from you at this point.
Exactly.
I like that better. We need if we ever rewrite Injustice, I'm winking right now. We need to do that. Anyway, Cameron says Diana would have also asked to search where Cassie was if she didn't appear. That's the other thing. It's like you didn't think of them.
That's why it's so contrived. Because honestly, you didn't even know that they existed until then.
Yeah, I know, and I'm like, what? I It's like, and then again, this is just more of the, Wonder Woman would definitely be like the Warrior or like the Red Sonja or the Xena ripoff, even though, so people say she's like Xena the Warrior Princess, except here's the thing, if you watch Xena, Xena's not bloodthirsty. She really isn't.
Well, again, they think of warrior women as bloodthirsty.
Or watch, how much you want to bet that Taylor was like, oh, I was trying to make Diana like the mythologically accurate Amazons, and I'm like,
Hmm.
that's not a thing, though. But anyway. So then we get to the other thing Injustice did. It makes people think that if Superman and Wonder Woman are together, they turn into this. And I'm like, oh my, it's like Britt, again, it's like they honestly expect me to believe that just by being together, they turn into dictators.
Because they think that these people, even though there are 50 million superpowered couples, Clark and Diana are, again, they are the epitome of positive power. And with them together, they are also not together as a power fantasy, but given that their love interests or, primary are human or mortal, it is a power fantasy for them. And to have these two, powerful people, quote unquote, tamed by the pretty much average Americans, that is something that people want to gravitate to. And yes, again, it is very xenophobic, but DC has validated, such an idea with Injustice, with even tried to slither that in within New 52. That, oh, if Clark and Diana are together, not so much as they will, become dictators, but the threats are higher. That something, if they break up, they will, I guess, fight, like in Wonder Woman Dead Earth or something, and cause some type of catastrophe. It's just things like that, those doom and room scenarios that they tried to come up with where obviously the scenarios aren't right. You know, when you have Clark and Diana as their characters that they're supposed to be, you don't get that. If they can be best friends with that um, romantic tension and everything like that, I highly doubt them actually being together will cause some type of catastrophe, or they'll just switch all their and moral codes and values, just throw it all away. And again, we talk about this all the time of how Diana, she is against, men that abuse power, you know, Zeus and Hercules. So why, with her being with Clark, pretty much totally throw out the window or erase her thoughts on men of power and the Amazons as well?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, again, she would be the one, because you could do this. Again, I'm bringing this up because I want to prove that we can do this better than DC, which that's not hard, but you could do it where, like, he's suffering, and like the thing is, like, Diana helps bring him back into the light, and he could say, I don't want to think about what I could have turned into if you had not come along.
Well, that's pretty much Kingdom Come. So yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like again, Injustice is just the crappy Tumblr fan fiction of Kingdom Come.
Yes.
And then you go to everyone is morally inferior to Batman because Boone is a hardcore Batman fan. That is exactly why. Because it's like Batman is the only one standing against Superman and stuff, and it's like it's one of the most stupid things in the world. And the more I look at this, and I'm like, just make a Batman game. That's all you gotta do.
Well, Batman has like 50 million, so
yeah, exactly. But so let's see. Then you get to the other characters that he has that Injustice butchered. So we have Batman, Jimmy. But so with the Flash, he's more of like a henchman until the game where he turns against Superman. So there is that at the very least. And he goes through an entire thing where he's like, where he starts to see like the errors in Superman's ways. Like there was this kid that the Flash had saved at one point who was a big fan of the Flash, as a matter of fact. He grew up to be a superhero and stood against Superman and the regime. Superman and Wonder Woman, they paralyzed him. And the Flash felt responsible because he said, I could have done something to help him, but I didn't.
There's no way Clark and Diana would do that.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, Cameron said an even better idea would have been an idea Cersei had been impersonating Diana for a significant amount of time after a big battle with her for 5 years that no one knew until Prime Wonder Woman defeated her. That's my theory, Cameron. That's my way to fix it. Then you get to Green Lantern. You may be wondering, what does he do to Green Lantern? All right. So Sinestro shows up and he kills Kyle Rayner. He kills Jon Stewart and then somehow convinces Hal that Guy Gardner is the one who did it. And so it's to the point where Hal basically sides with Superman and then kills a Green Lantern. So the Owens take away his ring. And then as he's falling, Sinestro gives him a yellow power ring. So he becomes a Yellow Lantern. Sinestro says, Guy Gardner killed Jon Stewart. Hal just believes him and goes and rips off Guy Gardner's arm and makes him fall to his death.
It's terrible.
Now, he did eventually earn back his ring and felt the guilt of killing Guy, but I'm like, oh, come on, guys, just stop.
Yeah, this is horrible.
And then Shazam, a follower that then Superman eye-beamed later in the story. So Superman killed a kid Isn't that awesome?
Mm, mm, mm.
Yeah, so then you have, let me get to Civil War. So Civil War character damage. Iron Man was seen as the villain. And again, yeah, the use of the prism. Captain America is seen as like too much, too rigid when it comes to the storyline. And it's like the only thing that like stops him in the war, he surrenders, and it's because eventually the big battle at the end of the book gets like sent into the streets of New York, and they start causing property damage. And Cap is like, "Oh my gosh, we're not fighting for any reason. We're just fighting." And then Spider-Man. So, do you know? I've told you about how Spider-Man made a deal with the devil that ended up undoing his marriage, right?
Mhm.
This is what that spun out of, because Spider-Man was on the Avengers. He reveals identity. Then later on, he actually turned against Iron Man because of like people getting killed and stuff. And then he was on the run. Super villains found him, shot Aunt May, and then he didn't want Aunt May to die, even though she was like a 90-year-old woman. So Mephisto, the devil, says, "Oh, I could heal her, but I want your marriage. You're going to wish away your marriage." And they all agree to it. So all that BS about Spider-Man is because of this.
Wow.
Yeah, so again, if you ever think Marvel can't be petty, just read this. But in terms of like see, here's the thing. Inevitably, it like really helped a lot of characters, but Civil War also did some damage. The thing about Civil War is that they at least fixed a lot of this later. Now, the Spider-Man thing they still haven't repaired, but for the most part, a lot of the character damage done to these characters was undone. Injustice wasn't. Injustice is just allowed to fester like an open sucking chest wound.
Yeah, with maggots and all.
Yeah, exactly. So then you get to long-term impact. Well, long-term impact is that Injustice is like it's like people's favorite Elseworld stories, and people attribute the things that happened in it to canon. Like again, if Superman is not with Lois, he turns into a dictator and stuff. If Superman and Wonder Woman are together, they turn into dictators. Wonder Woman is just a warrior. Whereas with Civil War, it had changes, but it was more like, what's the word? It's more like story-wise, and it's a little bit less contrived. And again, the damage was eventually repaired. That's the thing. It's like eventually it was like, okay, no harm, no foul.
Right.
That's the thing about that. So then, now we're going to talk about Civil War 2, Britt. I'm going to explain to you the Bendis' shitty sequel. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
First off, this storyline only exists because the Civil War movie was announced and Marvel wanted to have a tie-in. And even though it's nothing like the movie. So in this, Britt, you know who the Inhumans are, right? I mean, yeah. So the thing is, a new Inhuman shows up named Ulysses, and his ability is that he can basically have visions of the future. It's a little more complicated than that, but just in a nutshell, that's what that is. So what happens is the Avengers stop a bunch of threats and stuff, and Iron Man's like, "Whoa, that was awesome! This never been that easy. How do we do this?" And then Carol goes, "Well, there's a Inhuman we've been listening to that basically tells us how to predict the future." And Iron Man's like, "What do you mean? You can't predict the future?" And it turns into where, a pre-crime story where Carol starts arresting people because it's like Ulysses. So Ulysses had a vision that like Thanos would show up. So because of that, she showed up with the Avengers, and She-Hulk was shot with a rocket and wounded. Rhodey War Machine was killed in this storyline. Yes, he actually died in the comics. So this is like Iron Man says, your religious, like keeping to this, predicting the future, cost me my best friend. And here's the part where it really starts to look bad for Carol. There are predictions that Ulysses gets wrong. Like there's this one incident where a woman is predicted to be a Hydra agent. Carol with a bomb in her suitcase. Carol shows up to arrest her. They throw her in jail, and it turns out the suitcase was freaking empty. There was nothing there. So he gets predictions wrong, but she still treats it like he's getting the 100% right. That's a major issue here. And then they get a vision that Bruce Banner the Hulk is going to like is going to kill to like take out like is gonna like turn into the Hulk and kill people. Even though at this point Bruce Banner wasn't the Hulk anymore, he had been cured. So they show up at his doorstep, every superhero. So Britt, Bruce Banner's powers are triggered by extreme stress and anger. So let's roll up with S.H.I.E.L.D. and every superhero to his front frickin' door. So they show up, and then eventually Hawkeye kills him. So this is when Bruce Banner dies, and Hawkeye is exonerated because Bruce had met with him prior and said, "Hey, if I ever turn into the Hulk again, just go ahead and shoot me with this gamma arrow and kill me." It led to a great Hulk story. But anyway, actually, it led to the Hulk story that outsold Tom King's Batman and got him kicked off of Batman. So this is the one silver lining of this storyline. So eventually it's revealed that Miles Morales Spider-Man is going to kill Captain America. That's one of the dreams. So they show up at the steps of the Capitol, and Carol is going to is going to basically tell the kid, "Hey, I think you need to like to come with me." So it looks like she's going to arrest Miles Morales for nothing until Captain America is like, okay, wait. This is going a little too far out of hand. Yeah. Cap is on Iron Man's team in this one. Iron Man shows up. He and Carol fight, and then Carol punches him so hard he gets sent into a coma. Actually, Iron Man dies in this. Like, he legit dies, and then his brain is uploaded to a computer as an artificial intelligence until he builds himself until he grows himself a clone body. So that's kind of what happened there. And again, it's like, and this is like the story that really like dogs Carol Danvers as a character for so long, and why for the longest time she was seen as an unlikable character because of this storyline specifically. So Britt, what do you think of Civil War II?
Horse manure.
Thank you. Yeah, it only exists because they were making movies. Now, the only good part, so in the Captain America tie-in, at this time it was revealed that Cap was a Hydra agent, and that would lead into like Secret Empire. But what they did here, so when Captain America is going to like is going to the Capitol to meet with Miles, his Hydra crew are like, "He's going to kill you." And he goes, no. What you guys have to pay attention is that. So he was trained to look at everything from every angle. While all the superheroes were focused on Miles killing me, I was looking at the background, and Hydra had taken over. So it's like, I win either way. So that was like the only good thing that happened. All right, do you know how many tie-ins were for this storyline, by the way? You ready? 56!
What?
Yeah, every character had some tie-in thing. That's like the other thing Marvel will do, Britt. If they want to make an event really sell, they will like every single character and their mother has to have a tie-in.
Well, that's desperate.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, Marvel is truly desperate. Yeah, this is where the Carol hate started, and they've only just started to like repair a lot of that damage that Civil War II did. So then we get to the final analysis of Injustice, and then we'll get to the movies. So the thing is, they both have the same basic plot of gods versus God and stuff. But while Civil War does it in a less contrived way, and in a way, yes, there are character assassinations, but they're not permanent ones. The problem is, it's kind of funny. Civil War was the in continuity one, but people are like, well, but people have forgiven Tony Stark. If you look at Injustice, that's the Elseworlds, but people treat it like it's canon.
Because for some reason with DC, you have a lot of people who don't read the main verse um, material. So yeah, they would think that this is um, all together,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. So, Britt, what are your final thoughts on Injustice versus Civil War?
Um, Hellfire garbage versus something that at least had potential.
Okay, I'll take that. I love your very colorful language, Britt. So now let's get into the live action adaptations. Now, here's the thing, Britt. Do you know why Civil War exists as a movie?
No.
Because Batman versus Superman was announced, and
Oh,
Marvel's
that's right.
oh wait, we need our own hero versus hero story. That's why
Well,
Cap 3 is really that.
yeah. I mean, again, the impact though, basically it aligned with the comic, you know.
Here's the thing about the movie. It does not follow the plot of the comic. It has the basic structure, but it's not it very much deviates from it. But it does it in a way that it's like, oh wow. Because with me, I'm fine adapting a storyline as long as it gets the basic plot of the story. And the basic plot of Civil War is there's a piece of legislation that makes the Avengers have to register with the government. Cap is against it. Tony's for it for their own reasons. And it's like with Captain with this, it's like that's basically that. And the idea that like they have to fight over the Winter Soldier because the Winter Soldier also killed Tony's parents and stuff. So Tony's operating on emotion. I'm like, oh, okay, that actually works really well. I like that. But yeah, it's like this was there's very much no character assassination in this because what the movie does is they make it justified. And the thing is, it's a subtle thing that the movie does that whenever each side does something cool, they both get the heroic music. It's not like one side gets like the very triumphant music and one gets the like evil music. No, both get the heroic music. So I know it's a minor thing, but it's something that like they do that's like, okay, both sides could be right in this.
Right.
But so it's like it's really like interesting about this. So Britt, have you seen this film and your thoughts on it? If you have,
I have. The only thing that's a little weird is the actual fight scene. Um, well, no, the fight scene is actually good. Um, but isn't that where they like meet at the airport or something?
yeah, the airport fight that was
Now,
the.
now that is a little underwhelming and a little cheap looking.
A lot of people thought that, and I
But
get it. Yeah,
because it wasn't a lot of, characters. However, the fight between Iron Man and Cap, that really gave the emotion that it needed. And yeah, Tony was um going on emotion, and just to have Bucky at the center of it all, yeah, it really tied it all together.
yeah. By the way, did you notice that they put a subtle hint to Bucky and Nat having a relationship in the past when she's like fighting him and he goes, "You could at least recognize me."
I mean, if they were to actually like show that a little bit more,
I wish they
then it
did.
would hit a little bit better.
Yeah, I wish they did. But all I know is that it's confirmed by the directors. That's what they were like referencing. But it's like with this, the thing about this, like, yeah, it's an Avengers movie, but here's the thing. The very fact that it's a Captain America movie proves that that's who was supposed to be right in the movie. But the fact that they do it in a way where, like, like, but both sides screw up, but both sides get stuff wrong. And it's like, you can understand. And the other thing I really like about this movie is, so one of the criticisms of the Marvel movies is that, oh, these superheroes fight in a city, there's all this destruction, and then they just go home and everything's fine. With this, like, no, you guys have caused a lot of destruction, so we're gonna like regulate you. And I'm like, okay. And the fact that, like, so Tony's argument is, hey, when I was with when I found out what my company was doing, I shut down building weapons. And then Cap's like, Tony, you chose to do that. And it even goes, what happens if, like, there's a situation that we need to intervene in, but the government won't allow us? Or what happens when they want us to intervene somewhere where we really shouldn't be? In other words, what if they turn us into an arm of foreign policy?
I mean, that should be the universal question for all heroes, especially with dealing with the government. And I think that is one of the plot points or so that James Gunn is probably going to try to do. But of course, the execution might not be as good. But with his setup of Superman and, of course, the heroes of the menace versus the government, especially Rick Flag Sr., you know, I think with what is that, Salvation, or what is it?
Yeah, it is called Salvation.
So yeah, I think that is something that they are trying to set up.
Geez, remember when people kept trying to convince us that his Superman was going to be reverse Kingdom Come?
They only said that because of the symbol.
Yeah, and it's not reversed, because if you want to talk about Superman, like the other heroes are too brutal, so Superman shows them another way. That's Kingdom Come. That's not reverse Kingdom Come.
But the thing is, the other heroes being brutal was actually the newer generation. So
that's true.
If Superman himself is supposed to be a new age hero, it's not so much as they're brutal, and they're not even brutal. And how are we supposed to know that when it was just Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, and Green Lantern, or Guy Gardner? So how are we supposed to get that type of feel that heroes are all brutal or whatever? We only have three or four more that's showing themselves, and they don't even show any type of brutality in the first place.
Well, they kill the giant monster in the movie, and I'm like, this whole thing about how Superman can't kill literally anything. I'm like, oh, just stop here.
I think,
remember when
that is very much an overcorrection of DCEU.
Well, speaking of that, so DCEU happens, which in my mind is the best interpretation of these characters in live action. In live action, Britt. I mean live action. So I want to be very clear about that. Because here's the thing. This gets heat somewhat unjustifiably. You have your arguments against it. I'm totally fine with that, Britt. Just want to be clear about that. I know you know I know you know that, but I want to be clear for everyone on the theater. But so you have some injustice elements. Now let's talk about because here's the thing about this, Britt. So I'm going to reiterate, when Zach was coming in to do Superman, he thought he was just doing Superman. They wanted him to do a more grounded take on Superman. The reason why I'm saying that will inform other stuff later. So again, they wanted him to Christopher Nolan-ize Superman. So with that, he wanted to do if someone like this existed, still good, this is what would happen. The public wouldn't necessarily fear him. And to think about what happens if Superman goes too far. Now, that being said, originally it wasn't going to be that way with Superman. Now, when they wanted to do an entire story that forces in all these elements suddenly, that's where the problems came. That's where, like, a lot of this other stuff came in. It's like, how do we fit all these other fantastical elements into a very grounded world? That's why when people say they should have used Christian Bale Batman, They can't because he exists in a world that's overly grounded. You cannot do that. People only doing that only have a surface level interpretation of the characters. But anyway, so then you have with the Nightmare Future. The reason why I like this and not Injustice is because this is not necessarily just Lois dying. Lois dies, and then Superman is controlled by the anti-life equation, which is a thing designed to mind control people and like very powerful like individuals. So it's like even with then, they're telling you this isn't Superman in his right mind.
True, but his weakness is Lois. It was set up as she is the key to everything. She is still the key to his heart, to his mind, and for her to die or, or whatever, be in danger, that is still his weakness. So in that sense, that was how he was easily possessed.
Okay, but Britt, to be fair, by making it so it's the anti-life equation, Zach is telling you it's not just the Lois dies.
I mean, but he still said Lois is the key. So in that sense, just like with Kingdom Come, just like with Injustice, no, you do have elements that stacked on top of, to make him go overboard, but they shrink it still to be Lois. And we saw that even in Justice League, that he, is resurrected. He, is not in his right mind. He fights the Justice League. And who is it to get him out of that confused state? Lois. When you nerf the lasso of truth. Well, apparently she's supposed to be pregnant too. But
yeah, it's in the movie. It's indicating the movie if you like look in the background and stuff.
Still, the fact of even you have to nerf the lasso of truth.
Did they though? Because you still saw it was affecting him.
But we know that Clark is, when he's with the lasso, we saw it in 175. We even saw it with the young romance, that essentially Clark cannot break the lasso. Once he's bound by the lasso, he will know his truth. So yeah, it was nerfed in order for Lois to come in as that savior, for him to have that emotional moment with her, but still she is the one that they need to tame him, to put him back into his moral righteousness or whatever. So again, yes, he still said that Lois was the key. So in order for him to be possessed, his weakness was exposed, and that weakness was Lois ultimately.
Okay, but that makes sense. I guess I can go with you there. But again, it's like so. But now going to the Nightmare Future thing about this, it's that it's the difference between this and Injustice is it's not Superman that's ruling over Earth, it's Darkseid. So it's more like he gets turned into a lackey.
Well, either way, he's still it's kind of like he's the mascot face of Darkseid. Even if you do see Darkseid, you still see Superman. So it really doesn't matter that imagery is still within that, connecting to Injustice. And yeah, everyone still dies at some point. Even Diana dies. She becomes the god of war. This again, warrior woman type thing.
She never actually becomes the god of war. She has a nightmare of doing that.
Yeah, but it's still the implication of it all.
But anyway, so then with the Batman and Superman conflict, okay, so here's the vital piece of context. Dick Grayson has just been killed in this universe by the time Batman and Superman meet. The reason why I bring that up. All right. So, in the books, when Jason Todd was killed, Batman got significantly more brutal and held back less. That's why Tim Drake showed up and was basically trying to convince Dick Grayson to come back as Robin. He says Batman needs a Robin because he is going way too far with this. So, and then Grayson's like, I can't come back and be Robin. I can be Nightwing. You can be Robin. That's how like he did this. But and Grayson's always been the one that like Batman considers like his son, if you will, before Damon showed up. So it's like that's why Batman is significantly more brutal in this universe. And then here's the thing with Bruce, it's pretty much like realistically, you see this guy that has the powers of a god, and if you're already in a worldview where you think that there's no way good people could exist, you're going to distrust this guy that has all the powers. That being said, when he actually figures out who Superman is, and I know the Martha moment is meme to hell, but I think I explained the Martha moment to you on a different episode, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
To review, what it is like when Superman has when Batman is like over Superman with a kryptonite spear, and he says Martha and stuff. What that's so it's like because Bruce always blamed himself for his parents getting killed, and that's essentially like Superman, and that's essentially Superman is this being that's supposed to be this alien, but all he's saying is like, do whatever you need to do. Please help my mother. And it's like Batman's like, at that point, I have become Joe Chill. Okay, so to review that's why he instantly changes, like, is like, no, I'm done with this. So, and that's with the whole preemptive aggression. It's more like the other thing that Bruce got heat for in the Snyderverse is the whole, even if there's a 1% chance that he could be our enemy, we have to treat it as an absolute certainty. Britt, that's an actual foreign policy tactic. It's called the 1% rule. It's like if the way it works is if the outcome of something, if there's a 1% chance of the worst thing happening, you have to take it like it's like the absolute certainty that it's going to happen. So that's why, and plus Bruce's rage was like fed into by Lex Luthor, so there was that. But in terms of like the darker tone and deconstruction, it's like, was it darker though? Because here's the thing: when you deal with like is like particularly with like Justice League and like at the end of Batman versus Superman, Superman's sacrifice convinced Bruce that like, okay, men are still good, and it's like. Because like it's like Batman saying that there's been a lot of time trying to I spent a lot of time trying to divide us. I need to put us together to make this right. I shame Superman, but I'm not going to fail him in death. That's why he puts together the Justice League. And it's like at the end of it, it's like a little bit more like positive, because it's like, no, because now everyone is like, in many ways, much like you and I support Superman and Wonder Woman because it encourages them to be their true selves, the meta-humans don't have to hide anymore because of Superman. So what do you think?
Well, yeah, that's true. However,
okay.
So with the whole thing, yeah, it was supposed to be Superman driven, that he inspires everyone. But the thing is, I guess the communication, of course, and all of that trying to rush into a Justice League and have his death and stuff like that, that his death inspired that instead of him actually connecting with everyone. That's pretty much why you don't feel him connected to the Justice League, regardless, because you don't get that, you just don't get that sort of interactions with them. So, but you turn it into Superman after BVS. It really becomes Batman's verse. It becomes Batman's perspective of everything, because Superman becomes a tool for Darkseid. He also becomes a plot device for Batman's ultimate story. We know that even with the revision after, whatever, the first draft or so of this verse was that Batman was pretty much the ultimate hero. He was the inspiration for everything, and Superman's son or Batman's son was to be the next Batman, to continue on his legacy. So, in that regard, this this does feel like injustice still, because you turn Superman, regardless of him supposing to be the inspiration, he becomes the dictator and the plot device for essentially a Batman story.
Okay,
Uh,
counterpoint.
mhm.
If it's like in Justice League, it's like, again, all of it is about Superman. Even Flash says, no, he was my hero. Everything is motivated by Superman.
Maybe yes at the beginning, sure, but
It's not the
towards
beginning.
at the end, it's still ultimately a Batman story because he is the ultimate hero. Superman becoming, again, what the initial idea was, Batman having a son, Superman basically getting cooked, and raising Batman's son, and influenced by Batman to become Batman. Whether it did change and it ended up being Clark's son, he still was to be powerless, become Batman, and Uncle Bruce is your influence. So yeah, whether it started at the beginning of the verse to be Superman inspired, he didn't have those connections that Batman ultimately had. Whether you had Bruce and Diana as this co-lead or whatever, you have Bruce with these more intimate connections with everyone else. Even with Arthur and Flash. Yes, we were told that Superman is the inspiration, but we never truly saw it as much because we don't get them to even talk.
Did we?
Clark and Diana didn't really say much to each other. You have this moment of Cyborg a little bit, but it wasn't really nothing, you know, connecting. Arthur didn't have anything to say to Clark. Um, and well, that is Whedon that did the Flash and Superman race for post credit scene.
Okay, but the I mean, I
Hmm?
guess the only thing I really did disagree with again is that it's basically Batman's show, because it's like, but Batman didn't really hang out with Arthur either. He met Arthur at the beginning of the movie, excuse me, but then it's like Arthur showed up on his own accord.
True, but it still became the Batman show. Just period.
Batman,
Even the nightmare sequence was Batman going against possessed Superman with his own, you know, team or whatever. But Superman was still the possessed evil, and Batman was the hero or the underdog or whatever you want to call it.
okay, but now let me ask you this: is that necessarily a bad thing that Batman
Yes,
is okay? Why?
because Batman gets everything. He is too overexposed, and again, you are throwing your actual inspirational hero and heroine because of Diana under the bus for Batman to become again the ultimate hero. He is the one right. And if you want to link that back to the 1% chance theory or whatever, he was right that ultimately Superman could not be trusted, or he at some point would turn evil. Yeah, he was possessed, but his weakness was still Lois. So that whole thing is, if Lois died, if something happened to her, Superman is weak enough to be able to be possessed, or he will turn against, the world, or he will forget the world and be all mopey and stuff like that. So it really justifies everything that Batman was saying from the very beginning.
Yeah, but the thing is like the difference between that's a little more nuanced, Britt, because again, Batman. See, the thing about it is like with originally in BVS when he says there's a 1% chance he's our enemy, we have to take his absolute certainty. The thing about that, he's taking that as if it's going to be Superman's like role to go ahead and it's going to be Superman's like will that it's going to be like Superman's choice. Where with the anti-life equation, it's not.
Even whether it is a technicality of not his choice, he still had that weakness enough to not even fight the anti-life equation. He couldn't even.
No one can fight the anti-life equation, Britt.
I mean, if he is the purest of heart and have that strong will of being raised by humans and being this ultimate hero, then yeah, at some point we will have that mental battle or emotional battle with Clark, as we saw in Super Doom.
Britt, in the comics, no one can fight the anti-life equation when it gets a hold of you.
Well, we still have the point of Batman is the ultimate hero still, regardless. Technicalities, no.
It's really the Flash who's the main hero, though, that in that case, because he's the one that goes back in time and says, "Do not let Darkseid kill Lois."
That proves my point. That Lois is the key to, Clark not going off the deep end. That Lois has to be protected at all times. She cannot die, or else he is.
But again, Britt, it's he gets controlled by literal mind controlling is different than she dies. I'm gonna go ahead and turn evil.
I mean, but he's weak-willed and able to be possessed.
No,
he was a plot device.
Britt, being weak, even though strongest will people cannot resist the anti-life equation in the comics.
Well, he was still used as that ultimate plot device. So,
okay, but so let's see what else aligns with the tragic events. Yeah, so key difference in executions. The MCU was first off, the MCU was actually doing Civil War, and it was controlled, intentional, and character protective, even though it was created just because Batman versus Superman was happening. And then with the Snyderverse, the influence was tonal and conceptual, not fully realized narratively. That's a good thing. Characters flirt with dark interpretation while fully becoming them. Let me ask you this, Britt. With everything that was said, which do you think is the better story? Injustice or the Snyderverse?
I mean, with knowing everything, both of them I don't like. So, which is better? Snyder only by a smidge.
How long has it been since you watched the movies?
I have watched them, but that still doesn't take away my thought on them. And especially again, knowing whether it was executed in just an idea and it wasn't, past the draft, or it was within, their plans and it was revised. It was the fact that it was thought of in the first place. That
no, but Britt, it shouldn't matter because if it's not actually like in the film, it's not a canon.
I mean, you still have the nightmare hint. Superman is still going to be possessed evil or whatever. That was in BVS. So that technically was in the movie. You still have the
no, but the Wonder Woman, like the Wonder Woman in like the Crimea War isn't.
I mean, you still have her. You have the photo of her with,
and Anthony, he doesn't turn into Zod. I think that's very oversimplifying what happens.
He didn't turn into Zod. He mostly turned into still in that sense of it's still validating and justifying that whole thought process of Omni-Man. That with saying still, Lois is the key. You can't let Lois die. Why? Because at some point, either Superman is going to go off the deep end on his own, or he's mentally and emotionally weak where someone could possess him. Um,
Omni-Man.
Omni-Man needed to be helped by Debbie to integrate
No, he
within,
didn't. No, he didn't. What actually happened is like his son turned him good.
even with he still wasn't, he didn't grow up on Earth though to have that instilled. He came as an adult. And that's the thing that some Clovis fans or, they feel like Clark comes to Earth as an adult and he doesn't have the background of the kids. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, but again, ignore what the idiots who don't read comics say, Britt. Just take it from what the story itself establishes.
The story still establishes that Lois is the key to keeping Clark sane and that Bruce is the one that becomes the ultimate hero at the end.
Again, it's not that without Lois he goes insane.
I mean, so why is she the key?
Because here's the thing, Britt. Here's the thing. He's dating Lois in this universe, right? Okay, here's the thing. And ostensibly, he loves her in this universe. In fact, I think they're actually married at this point when that happens. So she's his wife. If you want to break the will, ignore that it's Lois Lane for a minute. Ignore it's Lois. If someone is going to get to, if someone were to kill my girlfriend, let me put it to you that way, that is enough to break the spirit of someone. Because what happens is it's not like Lois, because again, ignore that it's a character you fundamentally don't like. Just take it as like a dude and his wife. Pretend it's Wonder Woman. You kill Wonder Woman. If Superman and Wonder Woman are really together, you kill Wonder Woman. Superman is not going to turn evil straight up. But let me be clear. But he's going to be mentally broken for a minute. And that's enough for the anti-life equation to ensnare him. Again, ignore it's Lois.
Lois is not just the factor that I'm saying. It's just in general that it was still a part of the story that she just a love interest period. It wasn't emphasized that if Martha dies or if you can have a random child, you can have a random citizen die. No, they emphasize on a love interest. If she dies, if something happens to her, that whatever can slither into his thoughts and hearts to possess him. And I have a problem with that in general.
Okay, but that's realistically what would happen to like anyone
I mean,
if like they lost a loved one.
you would mourn them, but it's just not enough. I just don't see how these morally righteous, you know, characters could just truly go off the deep end. And then
Well, he
again,
didn't go off the deep end. He was mind controlled. That's it. It's different than Injustice, because in Injustice, it's literally his choice.
I mean, it still revolves around him having feelings for Lois. Regardless,
Again, ignore Lois.
a love interest.
Because again, you take any
If you
man.
were to have it that nuking Metropolis or whatever devastated him, then I would take that. But to narrow it down still on a single person, regardless of it being Lois, anyone else, it could be Lana. I don't care. Just the fact that it is one single person as a love interest. No, I don't agree with that.
Well, it's like you mentioned Martha. They did that in BVS when Lex kidnaps Martha. That's how he coerces Superman to go fight Batman.
I mean, even that was still a little okay, but that was
But you
for them
just said
to connect. I mean, that was for them to connect with Batman and Superman to have the same like feelings of a mother. But I mean, that still has its way of contriving. It was just a flawed narrative.
Okay, I can. I still disagree, but yeah, I think we came to an agreement to disagree. Impact on audience perception. Superman Snyder era portrayal reinforced fear-based interpretation of Superman. Not the end, though. Again, it's like maybe in the beginning. See, here's the thing: the fear thing that was only in one movie, Batman versus Superman. That's because it was a Batman movie. And then combined with Injustice emphasized the idea that Superman is dangerous by default. Again, I think that's a little oversimplifying it.
I mean, yeah, that is oversimplifying the character because we get that interpretation.
Yeah, but it's like, so let me ask you this. Was that in Man of Steel?
No, but it doesn't matter. From the beginning, it was
Nope.
okay. You get this grounded. Wait a minute.
Hmm?
You get this realistic, grounded verse. Sure, it is going to be where some people question him. He's going to have a difficult time, but it still leads to the end, regardless if even if we didn't see it yet, it was still implied. It was still told that this was going to be the story. Yes, it did have revisions, but the initial story was that Superman was possessed in the Nightmare timeline. Everyone's dead. Batman is the ultimate hero that saves everyone. Sure, Flash goes back in time. Yeah, whatever. But he is still following Bruce. Bruce at the end is the inspiration for the new generation of heroes with his son or nephew becoming Batman. While Clark is either raising his own son to be Batman or raising Bruce's child because he loves Lois. To still be Batman, it was still ultimately ended up being a Batman story.
Yeah.
While Superman is a plot device and everyone else around is a plot device. And on
But again,
with
Britt.
Wonder Woman, on with Wonder Woman, yes, we did no, we didn't get that particular story, but it was still told of the initial idea. Yes, it was vetoed, scrapped, or whatever, but to just have that idea of her having heads all over the place, um, being this emotionally succubus type warrior woman until she meets Steve. We still have that compromise because within the first movie, yes, she was motivated by her own, but at the end of the movie, still to where we got a sequel of that, her motivation was still Steve, where she walked away from humanity, still within that little primary part because Steve died. So that's what I'm saying. Whether it is a technicality that, yeah, you do have these other elements that we see, or you look at the depth of the idea, but it's one element that is emphasized on. And it is Clark and Diana being attached to love interests, regardless of whether it was for Diana, Trevor Barnes, or something like that. It does not matter. It was still simplified to one person. So Clark's whole journey or whatever is simplified to Lois.
Okay.
Diana's journey is simplified in her learning about love, her, everything that she did. And again, it still had that effect in her own sequel, was about Steve.
Okay. So on that. Okay, so if like just because it's a rejected idea, we have to take it seriously. Okay.
Yes, it was
Hang
the
on.
initial.
Hang on.
Mhm.
Then in that case, we all can't accept Absolute Wonder Woman because the original idea she was just gonna be Kratos and the God of War. But
The
yet
thing
we
is,
accept that book.
no, the difference is you have certain elements that slithered their way within what we actually saw. So yeah, it might have not been the whole initial idea, but we still got some elements of that idea, regardless.
Okay, but again, it's like
So Diana learning of love, that was the initial idea, but it was transformed into her first love or her idea of love or, her motivation, her
that it
purpose.
wasn't her idea of love in that 2017 movie, though.
Yeah. What I'm saying is the initial idea versus what we got in 1984. And technically at the end, she's still, or no, at the beginning, her whole story still was, thank you for bringing him back to me. Yes, she told her story, but at the end, it was still about Steve.
It's bringing a piece of someone that meant a lot to her 80 years ago. That's a little different.
Which is still was that motivation though. Even Patty said so. And we got a whole damn sequel of him
Ignore
being
the
her.
sequel because the sequel
It
was.
still happened.
That's true. That is very true. But it's like if you take the Snyderverse, because really when you look at the Snyderverse, it's really just Man of Steel, BVS, ZSJL, Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad, the non-James Gunn one, and then Aquaman. That's it. That's what the Snyderverse is. The rest of the stuff was dramatically like changed by Warner Brothers. That they even said themselves they were going far away from what Zack established. Even Patty said she was going far away from what Zack did. So I'm like, if we're going off of just the universe that was originally planned, because I count Aquaman because that's pretty much where the character kind of was going as well. But it's like if you only count it like that, I'm saying that's what the Snyderverse actually is. Because the Snyderverse gets like misinterpreted as including like Birds of Prey, Shazam, and all these movies when it really doesn't.
Well, I mean, it's still under the banner, so I guess, regardless, they're still going to say DCEU.
Yeah, but again, they're wrong.
I mean, they don't see it that way. Yeah, they might be wrong, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but they're stupid people. We know this, Britt. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, okay, ignore 1984 because that's not part of the Snyderverse. Let's just take it like this. Okay, so the way you could take it, because if you notice, here's a very important detail in Wonder Woman 2017. She never says she loves Steve Trevor.
I mean, but still, whether she says she loves him or not, it was still her motivation.
No,
Or how is that when that was pretty much the ending of she had his watch? I mean, she only knew him for what, 3 days or a week, and still, you gave me this photo, and gave me his watch back and all of that kind of stuff. It was still that we don't see her as the even her being 80 years within this, world, and she walked away from humanity. Why? It wasn't because humanity was bad. They still, regardless, Jared, what was said though was Steve's death.
okay.
So,
First off, okay, so let me address that. Was her and Steve the only people in that photo?
but it's still emphasized on Steve, regardless.
Well, yeah, because she had some pieces from that time in her life and all those friends that as she met. Diana would be attached to those people. And here's the other thing about that. So when she talks about maybe love could save the world, here's the other thing. She could be talking about Steve, but remember, she takes out Ares, she looks around, and all of a sudden everyone just stops fighting. Everyone's embracing. The war ends. We know World War II happens, but the point is just go with it. It's like so. You could take it as, she could be talking about, but it's the fact that she never said, I love you too to Steve. He said, I love you, which what does that say about Steve Trevor's character? And then he leaves. And again, it's like, at least in that movie, it's like the only thing that really confirmed that like she loves Steve was in the Snyder Cut where he goes, I lost someone I loved once. But it's like, beyond that, it's like she never really confirms that she like loved Steve.
Whether it was said or not, it was still part of her motivation that was emphasized. Yeah,
But
we see
again,
other people in the photo, we see
mhm.
other people. I mean, even Etta, she does not bring her up at all. So it's like that Steve was still emphasized regardless. Yeah, it was other people around, but he was emphasized.
Okay, but it's like, let me see. Well, the thing about that is like,
Jared, that is why we have Tom King's run.
well, no. First off, don't take Tom King trying to base off DCEU Wonder Woman. We all know he's an idiot. Second off, the other thing, the one that overly emphasized Steve is actually the Whedon cut.
I mean, it's still
And remember, Whedon cut isn't canon to the Snyderverse anymore. The Flash established this.
whether it's technicalities, the stuff is still there. We still saw it. Her whole motivation and stuff was still
Her
Steve.
whole motivation was not Steve, though.
Well, she doesn't
Because
really
if that were
emphasize anything else.
true, she wouldn't have been a superhero, period.
I mean, she did a little here and there, but it was not, it was still the fact that her, anything that she did, it was still Steve being brought up in some type of way.
Anything? Okay, so Doomsday is attacking Batman and Superman. Okay, so where's Steve mentioned there? I'm gonna go get armored up and go fight Doomsday.
I mean, doesn't she look up at the sky and see Lois and Clark and she thinks of, oh, him dying reminded her of Steve. Wasn't that said?
No, that was theorized by fans. That wasn't said.
You sure?
That trust me, Britt. Would I lie about what the Snyderverse said?
I'm just saying. I don't know.
That was something that someone theorized based on that. It's never said. The only time she mentioned Steve Trevor is in Justice League, not in Batman versus Superman.
Whether he's actually mentioned, it was still the form of her whole thing.
Her whole thing?
Then if we know that the Diana that we know, she would not walk away from humanity. She would not be in the shadows. What was the purpose of that then?
Okay, well, no, she was helping people. Well, here's the thing about that. Because remember, this is why I brought up the basic idea of the Snyderverse being like a more Christopher Nolan realistic version of the universe. Because that's what they want to do with Superman. And the thing is, realistically, that's kind of what would happen. It's the idea that Superman being openly a superhero and a metahuman brought everyone else out, because that was the argument for why Martian Manhunter was like more from the shadows, because like, no, it's because in this world, as it's established in the very beginning of the Snyderverse, it wouldn't necessarily believe that like this being could be all good. Also, here's the point about Wonder Woman being like from the shadows, Britt. Here's the advantage of Wonder Woman being old in this universe, because she started in World War One. How many? At what point did people commonly have cameras that would be able to track her? How do we know, like, saving people from the shadows, what that actually entailed?
I mean, there's never a benefit to her being old as dirt.
No, I know, but I'm just saying in this case, it's like her saving from the shadows. As far as we know, every day she was saving people.
I mean, that wasn't said. What was said was she walked away. That was established.
Yeah, but it was later explained that no, she just helped people from the shadows from the side. She
Diana
wasn't, like,
would not, but still, even realistically, Diana would not be in the shadows, period. No. Mm-mm.
Let me think about that.
No.
No, hang on. Let me think about that, okay? Come on. Let me think about that. Would she? I mean, you are right about that. I'll give you that. But it's like the point is, what they were trying to do is established that because Superman was openly as a superhero, that inspired the other metahumans to, because again, he normally serves as like the example for everyone else. So it was more like he like inspires the other metahumans to like be more open and be like, okay, we don't have to hide anymore because look at Superman. He inspired all of us to like come out of the shadows. That's the whole. If you look at Jor-El's speech, he says, "You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive to. They will stumble, they will fall, but in time they will join you in the sun." That's why, like at the end of the Snyder Cut, where the Justice League is like on top of that nuclear thing at the end of the movie, the sun is behind them.
Yeah, I mean, that does connect, but still with, as I said, realism or not, um, Diana wouldn't need that. She wouldn't need to come out the shadows, and that's why she needs to be in modern day. Being a wartime hag is not her.
Okay, I'll give you that. You can. I definitely don't. That's one of the dings that I give it. I don't like the. I mean, I get the whole reasoning for making her like old and stuff, but it's like I don't necessarily like that either, Britt. So you know what? There's some stuff that I necessarily don't like enjoy, and then with Bruce being brutal, that I'm gonna very much did it because that is straight out of the comics, not Dark Knight Returns is what I'm talking about here. Because again, this guy has just lost Robin, like killed by the Joker. That's why he got very brutal. And then when he like sees the inspiration of Superman, that's what inspires him to like, okay, I'm not going to kill anyone anymore. I'm not going to brand people anymore.
Yeah.
So again, so to your point about Batman being the main hero, is he though? It's really, he's inspired by Superman's example. Or it's like even when they're leaving to go fight Steppenwolf, Bruce goes to Alfred and said, "He'll be here, Alfred. I know it." And then Alfred says, "What makes you so sure?" "Faith, Alfred. I just have faith." And then and then also when they're talking about bringing back Superman, Alfred says, "How do you know?" So bringing him back, and it's like, how do you know the team is strong enough to fight Steppenwolf? And he goes, "Alfred, I'm just operating strictly on faith, not on reason." And he basically said, Alfred says, when you're facing a charging bull, you don't wave the red cape at it. And then Bruce says, "You do when it's this red cape, because this red cape is charging back." So again, all of this is inspired by Superman. That's why I said, yes, Batman is the one assembling the Justice League. When you watch the Snyder Cut especially, it's more of like they're inspired by the spirit of Superman and his example to reunite and really to bring him back to life, because they're like, we can't fight him without Superman.
I mean, yeah, but
So remember that. Let's be very fair about that. But when we say this is a Batman focused thing, it's really a Superman focused thing.
I mean, I don't.
Spiritually, it's a Superman thing.
We're going by spirit, then I mean, sure, it gets like
Because
a
we
half
know
pass.
Batman fans will think of everything and make Batman the essential fan. Ignore the fan base, Britt. Ignore the fan base. Take it from what is actually on the film.
What is on the film is still Batman as the leader. He's still the one that connects with everyone. Yeah, if Superman was the inspiration, again, I would have expected out of a 4 hour plus movie, it would have been a little bit more dialogue of him actually being the leader, of him actually having at least some scenes individually with the other characters. But we didn't see that.
Okay, I can kind of agree with you on that one. But yeah, but I definitely think that like comparing this to Injustice, I'm like, I wouldn't really do that because this is significantly less contrived than Injustice.
I mean, Injustice is straight. Let me see. Hellfire coming out of
The devil's ass.
Well, I want to say something worse than that, but okay, we'll go with yours. So yeah, that is that. But again, the influence is still there with, like I said, even with the technicalities of everything surrounding it, if simplified or so, we still have those influences there.
Yeah, but it's like they're straight up telling you, yeah, if simple Lois just dies, that doesn't turn him evil. You would have to do some mind controlling on him. So it's like they're even telling you justice isn't the be all end all.
Well, they shouldn't have had Lois's defeat. That is the main problem. If you didn't have that line, specific line, then it would just be
If it were
a little
Martha
bit different.
Kent, Britt, it would have said Martha is the key. What difference does that make?
Um,
Beyond its Lois. Ignore its Lois.
again, I don't
What if they
care
said
that it's
Diana
low.
is the key?
Knowing that relationship, unless you really have it confide, I mean, still, even whether one of them died, they wouldn't do that. I wouldn't like the story.
No,
Period.
I'm not saying Superman would just straight up turn evil. I'm saying take the Snyderverse version of this, and again, it's replace Diana, replace Lois with Diana. Diana is killed, and Superman's grief for losing Diana, whether or not she's his girlfriend or his best friend, causes him to be susceptible to the anti-life equation. Would you accept that?
Nope.
Oh, really?
Mm-mm.
Okay, why?
I just don't like possession stories, especially with that, because again,
Okay.
he becomes a puppet plot device.
Okay. Now, that the other part being said is like, so let's say, and again, this is something that could possibly be addressed later, because we all know that's likely that he'll come back to finish the story with Paramount stuff. But it's like my thinking, because the other thing in the Snyder cut is they establish that all of this stuff is just alternate timelines. Like, it's not the Snyderverse timeline where he turns into the dictator.
Yeah,
Because
we know that, but okay, so what is the main ending then?
now here's the thing, Britt. So it's, obviously you've seen the Snyder cut, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Joker scene at the end was filmed in 2021, and what that scene said, he's basically accusing Bruce. How many alternate timelines did you blow up by letting Lois die? And now I get it's still like the Lois is the key, but hang on for a second. But it doesn't necessarily mean, because I feel like this was Zach saying, okay, I may not necessarily go in the nightmare direction for this, because you could always say, hey, they stopped the Unity. Darkseid has to actually physically invade now. So the thing is, it's like, so what that tells me is like all those other timelines where we were like seeing all the nightmare timelines, because it's established in DC Comics lore that with the multiverse, what happens is like sometimes you could get visions of like alternate realities in your dreams. That's how they explain how Jay Garrick is a comic book character in Barry Allen's Earth in the Silver Age. So I think that's what they're kind of leaning in on. So so the way I kind of see it is like, the way I kind of interpret it now with the Snyder cut. That's why I say you have to consider the Snyder cut, because that's a different animal now. The way I kind of see it is like them bringing Superman back, and the way the Snyder cut ended with them stopping a Darkseid, that stopped the nightmare timeline from happening.
Hmm.
So because if you notice, both times when Flash says she's the key, that's also in a dream by Batman. So in the case of being alternate realities, that would be Bruce seeing the actual like experiences of other Bruces, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Because again, there is precedence for that in the comics.
Yeah, sure. But still, ultimately, it still boils down to, again, with the simplification, keep Lois alive.
No, but dude, that's not going to be the story, though. You don't know if
I
the
mean,
nightmare timeline is going to happen anymore.
still, we don't know what the revisions were, but initially, what if the story would have continued in 2016 or whenever it was supposed to continue? That was still the initial idea, regardless.
Okay, but Britt, it's not going to be that anymore, as far as we know.
We don't know.
All we know is that logistically, I don't think that they would let him go in the nightmare timeline anymore.
I mean, if he had the 2021 recording or, that of showing the nightmare timeline and all of that,
No, but Britt, remember, Justice League 2 would be only in the nightmare timeline. So, because my like expectation of what Paramount's going to let Zack do is just condense the story into one movie, which is going to be like basically Darkseid invades, and then the heroes unite to fight Darkseid in this big epic battle. That's basically the movie.
so
The whole thing about we're getting Justice League 2 and 3 and 2 is going to be the nightmare timeline. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. And even I don't think Zack expects that, because he even said, I made whole new storyboards in the event I get to come back. So I'm just saying, I'm saying, as you and I know, Britt, and Barry, Britt, you make great points. I want to be very clear about that. I obviously, you know me, right? But it's like, personally, I don't judge something unless it's actually on the film, on the thing. Because again, plans change. I could tell you anything. I could tell you I could tell you anything about like Athena per se. But if it's not in the book, it's not canon. It doesn't matter. It's not a part of the universe. Until a thing like the nightmare timeline is unless these guys go into the nightmare timeline, unless we get a movie in that, don't necessarily, because as far as we know, that could just be just Batman's nightmares of what happens if because if you even take it in Batman vs Superman, that's like paranoid Batman when he thinks Superman could like kill everyone. So you could just take it as that. And in the other universe, when we actually see the nightmare timeline, for the most part, there are 2 times in the Snyder Cut. Number 1, when they're about to revive Superman, and the Kryptonian machine is like, if you use apocalyptic tech to bring Superman back, it could end up very badly. So that's the first part. And the second part is the occasion at the end of the movie when they're talking about alternate timelines. So as far as we know, we're not going into the alternate nightmare sequence anymore. They could just say that was averted.
Well, hopefully.
So it's like, again, to be fair, unless it's actually like, it's not like James Gunn making the Kryptonians rapists.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the only point I'm going to bring up there. But final comparison, the MCU is again, wasn't a direct adaptation. It got the spirit, but it wasn't a direct adaptation. I do agree with you, though. In many ways, it's better than the book because it definitely went more. It didn't make the characters act wholly out of character, and even if they acted in a questionable way, they justified it with like Tony just found out Bucky killed his mom, and that Cap knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
That was the other thing. He's like, "Did you know about it?" He goes, "Yeah." Tony was operating on emotion, ignoring the fact that Barnes was under mind control, obviously. Interesting. Both cinematic universes involve mind control. That's cool. And so here's the thing about the other point I'm going to like dispute a little bit with the Snyderverse is the darker interpretations, because again, the movies that we got, let's recount the actual Snyderverse movies we got. Okay, Man of Steel. Britt, was Man of Steel dark?
Yes.
How is it dark?
I mean, as far as tonally, it was dark. Um, the if you want to say the better word probably would be the realism, but if you want to also say the darkness of still Clark having to kill Zod, and just that sort of still within that take of the harshness or whatever. Yes, it was inspirational at the end, or you know,
throughout it.
he had his moment, but yeah, that I would say it's more of the realistic take that makes it quote unquote dark.
Okay. And then the Batman versus Superman. Here's why. Here's the thing about that movie. That's a Batman movie, really, when you really like factor it in there. And I'll admit that is definitely a Batman movie. Snyder cut again. That's a little bit more of like, no, I have to. It's Batman undoing his mistakes to live up to the example of Superman. Everything is because of the example of this hopeful being.
Mm.
And then we get to like Wonder Woman 1, not necessarily dark, even though it's technically a war movie. Aquaman is definitely not dark, let's face it. But it's like, that's why I'm like, reinforce it.
I mean, he was the drunk uncle.
Yeah, but it's like the tone of the movie was definitely not dark, right? I mean, it depends on how you define dark, though, as you said with Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
But it contributed to misconceptions rather than clarity. We're gonna have to agree to disagree on that one, Britt. But it's all good. See, Britt and I are mature adults, and we can have our disagreements and still be friends, right?
Right.
So anyway, so the final takeaway is like Civil War became a blueprint refined for film, resulting in widely adapted and character. Yeah, exactly. It's like in Civil War, in many ways, like really made Marvel relevant again and like really revitalized Marvel comics for this time period. Because remember, this was also excuse me. Also around the time period that Marvel was declaring bankruptcy. So Marvel was a mess when Civil War came out. And it like really revitalized it. And Injustice destroyed so much of like DC and has really led to a lot of negative interpretations of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
So in conclusion, Britt, what do you think of all this?
Again, Injustice is hellfire, horseshit, and the Civil War, if executed a little bit more properly, it would have been a good story.
Yeah, it could again. If you wanted to say we needed the heroes to fight for a fighting game, have the heroes fight the villains. It's really that simple. You could say comic books are built from this.
Right.
Marvel had a fighting game, and it was just Marvel fights the villains, and occasionally there'll be mind control, but it's like heroes versus villains. I'm just like, guys, just stop with this BS. Anyway, so Britt, tell me about Green Lantern 23.
Okay, so of course we have the wonderful artwork.
Yeah.
But we are having the ensemble of Hal has his own plot and Kyle and his crew have their own plot. So it's a lot of moving parts within this, but it works. Um,
Mhm.
it's you have Hal again. It's a very different way of looking at him now from what I previously thought. You
Mhm.
know, um he is actually going on a hero's journey,
Mhm.
you know, and that's one that I don't think you have seen a lot. Well, he does go on a lot of hero's journeys to pretty much self-discover himself again or whatever,
Mhm.
but it still ultimately feels fresh. With Kyle, being that I know the spoilers of the past issue where I guess 600 issue
Mhm.
that it's pretty much setting up Kyle to be the um the driving force,
Yeah.
and kind of taking Hal's place as the primary
At least the Earth Lantern.
lantern. So we see that, and it's a lot of continuity references, a lot of again characters within that. So yeah, being a Green Lantern fan um of the past, you know, with reading this overall run so far, is very much of a Green Lantern fan will know the references, will know, where the story sort of leads, but also is still surprised by it. So
Mhm.
I pretty much gave it a 7.5, 8, um, 8 out of 10, because again, the artwork is flashy still. Um, and I like that it keeps it balanced a little bit. It does falter, with trying to balance all of these characters, and then you have Hal's whole thing, especially with the Spectre too. It it comes and goes. It feels like it, but I'll give it a pass.
So, in terms of the Spectre, do you know what that's a reference to?
No.
Okay, so Hal became Parallax, and then in a story called Final Night, he sacrificed his life to restart the sun. And essentially what happened with that is, so he died. That's when Hal Jordan officially died. And he later because when you die, you do have the capacity to become a host for the Spectre, which is God's vengeance. So Hal spent a significant amount of time as the Spectre itself. And that's what this issue was kind of being a reference to, because the Spectre wanted Hal to be its host again, and Hal's like, "No, I'm good, bro. I'm fine being a Green Lantern." And Hal was the Spectre, by the way, until Jeff Johns brought him back in Green Lantern Rebirth. By Rebirth, by the way, this is the confusing part. I don't mean DC Rebirth Green Lantern. The storyline is literally called Green Lantern Rebirth.
Well, isn't that confusing of
Mm-hmm.
even the absolute Wonder Woman? But it's actually the new 52 being reprinted, but they call it absolute, or the absolute reprints.
Oh yeah, with the Absolute editions. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I pre-ordered the Absolute edition of Historia. I'm so excited for that. So yeah, I agree with you. This issue is so good. The image of Hal turning into a giant knight to fight the Spectre. Again, all of these, like, the coloring on this is done so freaking well that it's like, what? How do you do this so well all the time? And again, seeing Zoriel, the Heaven's Angel, in this will never not be cool. So then we get to Storm number 4, and I need to say, you know how we love little Diana? I love little Storm.
Yeah. She was
She's
cute.
I love where she's eating food, but she doesn't know if she'll like it. She goes, "Well, I've lived a long time," and she goes, "You're 5," and he goes, "Tell mom I love her." And she eats it. And I'm like, "Oh, this is again, Britt. Every single time I read an issue, I'm like, yes, this is so Diana. Like, oh my god."
Right.
So, I see why you constantly say she can be like Diana. And she has a dinner with Dr. Doom. And I like Doom, of all people, going, it's like I could, like, in many ways, I identify with being like attacked because I am Romani. So I want you to know that, like, anyone that causes trouble against the mutants causes trouble against Doom. So I'm like, okay, that's actually not cool. It's actually not bad. And the Storm, the Storm and her father dynamic is the highlight of this issue. And when Storm returns as a cosmic being, I was like, oh my God, that's so good. That is so cool. Like that bottom left image of Storm. Again, the art on this is so good because not only does she have incredible hair, but it's like the coloring glows so much. I'm like, oh God, what the hell? How do you do this? But yeah, Britt, what did you think of this issue?
Yeah, it's really cute with Little Storm, but we also have the art. The art is what really stands out, with giving her this very otherworldly look. She already has the silver or white hair and, the skin tone and everything. So it really just stands out with the art. And then you have that emotional, back and forth with her. I think she was with what are those called? Capybaras or something. I think she was with animals too at some point. So yeah, it's really cute. It does remind you of Diana, and honestly, if we were to have another writer, I would love for this writer to take a shot for Diana.
Yeah, exactly. Like the writer and art team put both on Wonder Woman, and oh my God, this would be amazing. And it's again the little Aurora moments reminded me of those backup moments and like Absolute Wonder Woman and stuff. I love that.
Right.
And so I gave this issue a 9 out of 10 because it's so beautiful. And it occurred to me, I know why Storm having poofy hair really works. It represents clouds.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that just clicked. And I'm like, okay. And making Storm Cosmic Storm will never not be freaking dope. And so I'm digging that. So then we get to Absolute Superman number 18. So this is the introduction of Absolute Black Adam. Now, what I like about this is that we get the origin for Black Adam, and he is basically like a champion of the oppressed. His people were enslaved, so he sought out power in order to like protect his people. Now, here's a cool thing I didn't see coming. He gets picked up by Brainiac, and the implication is Brainiac is kind of what gives him his powers. I don't know if that's true yet, but again, that just happened at the end. And I like how Superman gave like Lois and Jimmy signal watches, but Lois is gonna go kill Ra's al Ghul, who actually is feeling very remorseful about everything he put Talia through. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. We also get the introduction of Absolute Steel, which I felt was pretty cool with like the hammer and such. And again, Superman with the dust cape. And when he just walks through that wall, he's got the dust cape. I'm like that. That's one of the things I told Jason Aaron when I met him at MegaCon. I was like, that dust cape is the coolest thing I've ever seen in Superman, because it looks like he's walking around with it looks like he has aura right there. And the other thing I do like is like he even adopts baby Parasite as like a little pet. So that's kind of funny. It's a little cute. And here's the thing. With Lois trying to like kill someone out of revenge and Superman having to stop her, it doesn't make Lois look good as a character, does it, Britt?
No, it doesn't.
So I'm like, oh, thank you. So I'm like, I like that. And I honestly like Ra's al Ghul saying, I've been horrible to you. And like Talia saying, what are you doing, father? And he goes, no, I really screwed up. And it's like the idea of like Black Adam, who is also known as King Shazam in this, having to fight Superman. I would see, here's the thing. You and I had our criticisms of this series bring in other villains to fight Superman, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they linked it to Brainiac, to a Brainiac thing, I'm like, okay, that's a way I think that's an interesting way to handle it.
It's a workaround.
Yeah, it's a workaround. I feel like it's a good way to compromise it, but and plus Superman and Black Adam have kind of been right at the very least rivals in the comics before, so I'm kind of cool with that. But overall, I enjoyed this issue. I gave it a 7 out of 10 because yeah, it's not perfect or anything per se, but overall I enjoyed it. The art is superb, and I really again how like the idea about now how Black Adam, because the way they could do this, I wonder if Aaron's going to do this with Black Adam, is if Adam is like a very more extreme version of Superman, like he is the more lethal, like very lethal, like we have to kill people in order to protect them. I wonder if he's going to be more on that, and Superman has to say, "Look, I lost my people too. This is not the way to do it."
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you think of Absolute Superman 18?
It was fine.
Silence. It was fine. I love that. I love that. But yeah, is the series at least kind of improving for you?
It's okay.
Not gonna give it any credit for you, are there? Are you?
Uh-uh.
All right. Keeping you, Britt, keeping you. But yeah, so let's do a little brief Q&A and then we'll wrap it up for the night. But yeah, so you guys can ask us any Superman, Wonder Woman related questions, Injustice, Marvel Civil War. But yeah, so it's like the thing about the by Scott Snyder did say that, like, because someone asked him, a buddy of mine asked him, so are you guys going to do absolute versions of like storylines of like DC storylines? And Scott basically said, no, we're not going to, we don't plan to absolutize, like there's not going to be an absolute Nightfall and absolute Death of Superman stuff. We're just going to do our own original stories for the absolute universe. And I'm like, oh, thank you. That's so at least we won't have to see the same stories rehashed over and over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, besides the villains of Batman, just a little bit extreme, uh, Wonder Woman is just doing her magic thing. And I guess bringing in Zatanna changes things a little bit, but it's, I mean, she's kind of padding Rebirth and Rucka's at least '03 run. So,
Well, in many ways, if she is doing it, I think she's improving on it. That's the thing. Because it's like, if you're looking at it, yeah, you could say she's doing like some plot points from Rucka, but she's doing them less contrived than he did.
yeah.
And I know that's not a high bar or like anything like that, right?
Mm-mm.
But at the very least, let me put it this way: at the very least, I don't dread picking up an issue of Absolute Wonder Woman like I do an issue of Tom King's Wonder Woman.
Well, I wouldn't suggest Tom King anything.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like the funny thing is like, so I had on recently a mutual friend of mine that was inevitable because she's a huge Wonder Woman fan, and so I just asked her, okay, so I gotta ask, what do you think of Tom King's Wonder Woman? Pause. I don't care for it, and I'm like, She basically said that Tom King should stop writing comics. And here's the thing, Britt. Jay Heat said on a podcast that we were talking about. The interesting thing is, what are the odds if like they moved him to the movies as a way of getting him away from the comics?
That's still terrible. He just, I mean, unless he stays within Mr. Miracle and New Gods type whatever, but having him influence even in the movies is terrible.
Counterpoint, Britt. Here's the thing about that, Britt. If he fails at the movies, let's be honest, when he fails at the movies, it's inevitable with his shit. If his stuff like starts flopping over and over again, he'll lose influence. That's the thing about Hollywood when there's millions of dollars at stake.
I mean, yeah, but even with what he's doing, you can fail upwards, and that's what it seems like he is doing.
Seems like but at the very least, for right now, I'll take him not having anything to do with the comics. At the very least, I'll go off of that for right now. I mean, we'll see what happens later, obviously. But yeah, any questions from the comments before we wrap up? Because otherwise, we'll just start wrapping up. So anyway, while people type out questions, Britt, why don't you update us on any stories you got?
Okay, so of course, so Odyssey will be up soon. That is chapter 3. I finally nailed down, some of the things that I wanted to put in the chapter. Yeah, it takes a while because ideas change, the flow changes, and just want to have that final, okay, I like this for myself, and I would think Shelter, of course, that is ongoing, but that will be up as well. Then I have a little bit some one shots here and there, finishing up actually um the Twist of Fate story. I have finally nailed that chapter down too.
Finally.
Yeah, it's been a while, but a lot of my older stories, I have the final chapters or, somewhat close. So those will be updated within the next few weeks.
Few
Along
weeks
with,
to probably 2 years.
funny.
I'm like kidding.
No, it would actually be a few weeks, and then I have the one shots. Again, follow my new Twitter page, BDiva27. That's BEY Diva27. Again, still doing Wonder Woman um, thread, starting that over. I will put my other threads on this new page, but change up things because my perspective has changed, especially with my Wonder Woman writers thread. Some ratings will go down further, some will maybe stay the same, maybe change to a little bit higher. Yeah, so I will be doing that soon. Um, but other than that, oh, also with the Super Wonder Instagram, we have 71,000, I think 600 plus followers now. Yeah, so again, anybody who says that no one likes Super Wonder, you can just direct them to the page, to the
Well, here's the
Instagram page
thing.
and see.
Don't you still have the most followers of any of the shipping accounts?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So hello. By their logic, no one cares about Lois. Which is true. As for me, tomorrow I will be discussing the Wonder Woman what's the word? I will be discussing Sensation Comics Volume 1, and maybe I'll do another topic as well. And then in terms of Wonder Woman Wednesday, I'm going to be talking about why Linda Carter and Gal Gadot's portrayals were both unique and iconic for their own eras of Wonder Woman. And then as for Under Two Capes, we'll see what storylines we decide to cover, and I'll see what other interviews I get. But yeah, again, any other questions before we wrap up? Because always I'm just going to wrap up the show. Dun, 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 dun. Da, 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 da. Da, da, da. So, Britt, tell the fine people at home about Claremont Superman Wonder Woman.
It is almost midnight, and I'm trying to keep the peace because it is almost Sunday. So I'm trying to be positive.
Oh yeah. I could say, yeah. Britt is really because that storyline is utter garbage. That's the thing. It's and here's the funny part. The way it was timed is that Robert also had you doing Marvel to the point where I was literally when he told me that you guys did Marvel, I was like, why do you got to do that? What are you doing, bro? And he goes, oh, it was hilarious, which I'll be sure to check that one out. But anyway, all right, I think it's a good place to leave it. Stay at work, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs with Satan. Zois the Max. Oh, and Steve Trevor belongs at the bottom of a hydraulic press. Zois the Maxibat for life. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.